Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LFC Roundtable podcast. This is the podcast where we break down everything on the Big Brother 19 live feeds. I am your host, Taran Armstrong, and today with me, we've got the whole gang together for the LFC Roundtable podcast. We did have everyone together on the Wednesday recap, but this is the first official roundtable where everyone is here. First, we have Melissa Deni. How you doing, Melissa?
I'm good. I'm just trying to make sense of everything that went on today. I honestly thought that today was going to be a pretty calm, easy day and that we really wouldn't have that much to talk about from today specifically. But then literally 30 minutes before we decide to do this, all hell breaks loose.
Yes, so it happens on the feeds.
Typical.
You never know. You never know when the smallest thing might erupt into something quite large.
Yeah,
also with us is Brent Wolgamott. How you doing, Brent?
Hey, everybody. Like I said, Josh just needs a little bit of kindling to explode. It's all fun. Okay.
Yes, and finally, we have Alex Kidwell. How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing pretty good. I feel like I've been talking to you a lot lately.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Probably.
you both.
We've been doing live updates on the live feeds for Big Brother 19 every morning. We're doing them at 10 a.m. Eastern this week. We will be back tomorrow to do another one. Always fun. Always people there are always very excited. Lots of jokes, lots of excitement. Everyone loves them. So check those out. We are here live every Monday night for the Roundtable podcast to talk about everything happening on the feeds. We have the chat room open on RHAP-ups.website.com, and you can send questions in to me on Twitter at Armstrong Taran. So let's get right into this. We'll do a quick recap of the week. We get Alex winning this HOH, and immediately she wants to put up Jessica and somebody else from the other side. Paul kind of makes sure this target shifts onto Dominique. She's been acting sketchy. A lot of people are sketched out. He's not happy with that whole show situation from the week prior where she was asking Cody a lot of leading questions. And then Dominique goes up on the block next to Jessica, freaks out at Paul, and we get this whole crazy argument that up in the HOH room where Dominique has been talking about snakes in the house, and Paul is not having it because it's basically been insinuated that he is the snake. So, Melissa, can I get your take on this whole Dominique versus Paul argument?
I was yelling at my screen the whole time because it was either I was mad at what Paul was saying or I was mad at what Dominique was saying, because Dominique has ammo against Paul. She has things she can say to prove that he is a snake, and she just wasn't saying anything. She refused to even address it and just kept saying, oh, I didn't say Paul. I didn't say Paul. Maybe I insinuated that it was Paul, but I never said the name. It's like, just own up to it and say, yes, Paul is a snake, and here's why he's a snake, this, and this. And then you'll get some people, but you just denying it the whole time or just saying like, I don't know, I didn't say any names. It doesn't give you any credibility. So I was getting very frustrated because I was excited that she was willing to stand up to him and was willing to, not just follow along like a lemming, but instead she just didn't do anything with it. She had this platform, but she didn't use it.
Yeah, it's
one element that we really haven't touched on enough is how harmful this line of rhetoric is on the majestic snake. I mean, what's that animal done to anybody? It's just so unfair. You can't campaign, so this animal gets a bad rap. It's just not right.
It's happened a lot. Big Brother has a bad history with the snake. I mean, Nicole last season got labeled as a snake. Now it's Paul. But yes, Melissa's right. Dominique was really, I feel like Dominique feels like as long as I don't say somebody's name, they can't possibly know who I'm talking about. It's like it's like a kid who thinks if I can't see them, they can't see me, and it's just not true. People know what you're talking about.
My magic sunglasses on.
She thinks she's being very sneaky in getting someone to think something on their own, maybe, but she's just like, pushing them in that direction. But that's not what's going on at all. It's everybody knows exactly who she's talking about, exactly who she was referring to, but yet she talks in these riddles and stuff, and it makes it so hard to understand her when you're having a conversation. It makes it hard to agree with her and to talk with her when she keeps like stepping back and being like, well, you know how the snake operates. It's like, no. Just tell me, did Paul say this? Did someone say this? Just be up front with it. It would drive me nuts if I was in the house with her.
Yeah, you know how the snake operates. Paul in there unhinging his own jaw to eat cereal or whatever. Wait.
Yes, so the target started to go on to Dominique, and then she has this freak out on Paul, and Paul really comes out on top in that confrontation, and the target has fully shifted onto Dominique. She looks like she is definitely going home this week. Jason ultimately wins the power of veto, and after a long back and forth with Jason wanting to take Jessica off the block to replace her with Raven, and Paul wanting to be the replacement to be Mark, ultimately the veto is not used, and it does look like Dominique will be going home. Brent, how do you feel about this?
I don't love it. I really think that Alex and Jason are like two people who couldn't like drive a car down a one-way street. They just don't really know what they're doing. I'm so glad that the veto ceremony came, because I'm so tired of listening to Whistlenut, like, will I or won't I? Oh, I don't know what I should do. It's like someone got power for the first time in their life, and they're like, oh, and now they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. It's really infuriating. I feel like I'm Melissa from last week, because I've just had it with these people, and I want to let them know. Dominique, more than anything, is just driving me crazy, because she's like, Father God, please help me. I don't want to go ham on these people. I'm like, bitch, no, go ham. We need you to go ham to save yourself, because talking in the room and isolating yourself is not helping yourself right now. I don't understand why you won't go have a regular old down home conversation with people. Like, there's two types of Dominique speaks in the house. There's the Dominique talk show where she's like, okay, stand up, say your name and where you're from, and ask your question. That's the happy Dominique. And then there's the riddle Dominique that speaks in like, there's a temptress in the house. There's a tempter. Watch out for the snake. Like, just talk like a regular person, not a government employee.
Brent is mad as hell, and he is not going to take it anymore.
She's the Riddler.
Yeah, she speaks in riddles, and she's always done that, and it kind of seemed like it might be impressive when it just constantly worked on Mark, but she never expanded from Mark, and now that she's in trouble and she needs to start talking straight, it's just not happening. And she even said, okay, guys, I'm gonna call Paul out in the veto ceremony. I'm gonna name names. I'm gonna really come for him. And from what it sounds like, obviously we didn't see the veto ceremony. It sounds like nobody understood a word she said in the right, Alex?
Yeah, but I'd at least give her points if she dropped "riddle me this" at some point.
Well, see, the riddles make sense when she's in the main group and she's trying to insert little ideas like maybe this person's not to be trusted, but like, I'm still part of the main group. We're all still part of the main group. I'm just throwing this little tidbit at you. When she was doing it with Mark in the beginning, it was like, ooh, she knows what's up. She sees what's going on. But now that her back's against the wall, she needs to fight for herself. She needs to be real and straight up with all of these people, and she's not doing it. So the riddles don't make sense anymore. They're not useful. She needs to separate herself from that. But I think that she thinks if she talks in riddles that nobody can pin anything on her. Nobody can say that she went against the group. The group's over for her. She needs to just like go against them. That's the only way to save herself.
I will say really quickly.
I'll tell you what, they can
still
pin on her. A majority of votes.
Right? I will say really quickly that in the beginning of this season, some people were really, really high on Dominique's gameplay. And some people even compared her to Derek. They were like, oh, she's the Derek, or, she's the one in control of everything. And I'm like, here's the thing. This is why I always had a problem with ranking Derek high on our rankings list, although I did rank him high at times, is because people really, their true character and their true gameplay, I feel like, comes out when they have the heat underneath them. Dominique was great until she ended up on the block. Derek never ended up on the block. I wanted to see what he was like. So this shows you what happens when someone is playing what looks to be a fantastic game, and we all loved what Dominique was doing the first couple of weeks. I know Taran was really high on Dominique, and then he started to come down a little bit, and then by this week it was like, so I just feel like until you see someone nominated and on the block, you're not going to see what their true Big Brother capabilities are. And that's why I think we should be cautious of labeling people a great player when it's like 2 weeks into the game.
Alex, am I crazy? Didn't Brent have Derek at number 1 on our player rankings?
Yeah, I did. The more I think about it,
it's higher on Derek than any of us.
Right. The more I hate it, the more I think about it, I hate that ranking. Yeah.
Okay.
Have to go revisit at some point.
So somebody asked in the chat, I'm sorry, I lost your name. Hunter Davis asks, who's better at speaking in riddles, Dominique or Big Brother 2's Monica? If you haven't gone back to listen to But First, a Big Brother 2 documentary, you absolutely should, so you can get funny jokes like this. But I feel like Monica even though she never made any sense, it felt like she knew what she was talking about at least. Whereas Dominique is just like talking in complete circles, right? Like, it seems like she doesn't even have any information. Melissa, am I wrong?
No, I mean, she does have information, but the way she describes it and the way she talks about it makes it seem like she actually doesn't have any information, because the second someone asks her like straight up, hey, what's the information that you have? Because I know you're trying to tell me something. And then she just like backs off and says another riddle. It makes you think that she really doesn't have anything. And the way that Paul kept coming at her and being like, give me facts, tell me what's going on. And she just wouldn't give any names, wouldn't give any facts, and just kept saying, yeah, but I never said your name. I never said you were a snake. It was heavily implied, but I never said it. It's like, it makes you think that she doesn't know anything.
Yes. Yeah, but who are you talking about? You're getting warmer. No, but who are you talking about? It's
like, just say
in a bread box. No more 20 questions.
And everyone already knew who she was talking about. And this is like where she's getting in trouble. And we talked about it on the update this morning, but I think the thing that has turned Dominique onto Paul is the idea that Paul has sold her out to Elena, that she told Paul that Elena is jealous of her, and Elena found that out somehow. And it couldn't have been Mark because she trusts Mark, and it couldn't have been Alex because even though she said somebody is jealous of me to Alex, she never named Elena. So obviously Alex could never have been the one to tell Elena. So that's the only reason why she suspects Paul in the first place. And that is wrong information. Alex is the one that told Elena. So she really doesn't have anything, even though she should, because Paul has given her enough to hang himself. She just doesn't remember that. And the only thing that she's coming at him with is this whole idea that he sold her out to Elena, and the idea that God has told her Paul's name, which obviously is meaningful to her, but is nothing concrete to any of the other people in the house. So Paul is the snake, and he did decide to dress up as a snake for the veto competition. He wore a dress that was snake skinned. I don't know the appropriate. Melissa, what is the texture of a snake?
The appropriate term is extra, Taran. The dress was extra.
Yes. And there was also some controversy over the idea that he was going to put some, he had a face mask solution sort of thing that was blackish colored, and he said that he was going to wear this black face mask kind of thing. This got out to some entertainment websites. I don't want to name them. I don't want to publicize them because I'm very upset about this whole thing. But they came out and immediately said,
they're ones known for reliability and accuracy. How about
that? Paul is such a racist. He is going to wear blackface to purposely insult Dominique, which was not the case. He was trying to dress up as a snake. Was it dumb to say, I'm going to have this black mask thing on my face? Absolutely. He should not be saying this. You should know better 100%. Ultimately, what he was actually planning on doing was wearing a couple of diamonds across his face. It was nothing like they had made it out to be. So bad reporting here, right, Brent?
Yeah, but the way he described it initially, I think there are many people who were watching this who were a little bit worried about what was ultimately going to happen. I mean, remember, most of these people in the house besides Kevin are relatively young. I mean, Paul's like 23, 24. I don't think many people really understand the concept of how bad it is to be in blackface. I think people that's completely lost. Like, Ramses was like egging him on. He was like, yeah, go, this will be fun. Like, I mean, they have no idea the concept of what's happening or the history of that hurtful kind of issue that is come up in America's history before. But luckily for us, Paul didn't do it. I would like to think that the diary room maybe persuaded him not to go full blackface and just do a couple of diamonds on his face, but that's just my speculation.
Yeah, no, I think Brent touches on a good point, because this kind of thing happened on The Challenge on MTV several seasons back, the Real World Road Rules Challenge, where a bunch of millennials, and one was trying to impersonate another and thought it would be really funny, and she ends up like putting on blackface to try to impersonate a friend. And it's just such flawed thinking, but to me it just speaks that this issue maybe hasn't reached everyone in our generation. Blackface was an issue in the Americas in the 30s and 40s and 50s. I mean, this was really a problem when, blacks weren't allowed to be in movies and weren't allowed to be on stage. And so white people were given these roles as black actors and simply were just mocking their appearance in the process. So, I mean, this is flashing back to a pretty dark time in our country's history. And I think it's a shame that there seems to be, and I'm just kind of realizing this, my eyes are opening to it. There seems to be a lot of people my age or maybe a little younger that don't understand the implications of what this means, which is sad. I think it's not something that should be forgotten.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad that this gave us an opportunity to talk about this. However, I do think that quote-unquote journalists should not be jumping to conclusions and assuming that Paul intended to wear blackface, which we do not know for certain at all. For all we know, his intention had always been the diamonds. So I just this is a good conversation to have. I'm glad we're having it. People should not be doing this, and if they don't understand what this means, then they should be educated on it. But let's keep the Paul is a racist headlines out of the circulation if we can.
Yeah, well, I think it's so helpful. Like, these things happen, right? And a lot of times in the Big Brother house. I was reading a very interesting article today that somebody had posted in our Patreon group about Survivor is the show that America I like tries to be, right? And then Big Brother shows us who we are. And I think that's like an interesting way of looking at it, where like Big Brother is kind of like, the people that get cast for Big Brother tend to be people that have the time to do it, first of all. So it's just it's casting from a certain group. Maybe a lot of them couldn't, are available for Big Brother, and people who are available for Survivor aren't available for Big Brother. So you're already looking at like a different class of people. And then they're all just like sitting around a house not doing anything. And like, yeah, controversial stuff seems to come up more often. And so I think it's moments like these, they can be bad. It's like I see the TMZ article and I'm like, oh, here we go. Like, my first thought is like, this is like the reality TV equivalent of like the day the music died. Anytime TMZ gets a hold of something, it's just like such a depressing day, because like the rest of the season is going to be tainted by this thing if TMZ has their way. But, at the same time, it's like, yeah, this could be a teaching experience for a lot of people for a lot of ways and a lot of reasons. Like, it doesn't have to be something that we yell at each other about. This could be something that like starts a dialogue where you're like, hey, do you understand why this isn't cool? I mean, I think that's valuable. We need room for that.
Yeah, well said, Alex. I did read that article. I thought the headline was really good. I liked the idea that Survivor is what we want to be and Big Brother is what we are. Then I read the
chat
article.
Room calls me a snowflake.
Yeah, Then I read the article and I was like, it just trashed Big Brother the whole time. I thought it was not a well-written article, but I liked the headline, so
yeah.
Get on them for that.
Got me to click.
Yes, it did. It did. Impressive headline. Better than the TMZ one for sure. Okay, so Paul does dress up as the snake. He has the diamonds on his face, and Dominique does attempt to call him out. But as I said, nobody really understood what was happening there. It really seems like Dominique just has no ammunition, and it's hard to imagine a scenario where she is able to stay this week, right, Brent?
Yeah, I was looking at the numbers, and I can get to 5 for Dominique, but 6 is really hard. And Alex obviously would be the tiebreaker in a 5-5 vote. So I don't know who she's going to find in order to stay. She needs to get out of the room. She needs to start showing people that she's socializing with them and that she's not somebody who's just going to sit back and take it. Because if you want to keep somebody in the house like Dominique, you want her to be a fighter. And right now she doesn't really seem to be much of a fighter because she's isolating herself so much.
Yeah, something that I wanted to talk about, something that I've been saying kind of all week, is that I'm not sure that going after Dominique is the right move for Paul this week. I think obviously he should have gone after Ramses. I think even he recognizes that, but he was unable to because Alex wasn't willing to go after Ramses. But is Dominique the right person for Paul to have gone after? Obviously, now that everything is blown up, he has to get rid of her at this point. She's very upset with him about him. She thinks that he disrespected her religion in that the argument that they had, because he said, don't bring God into this. God has nothing to do with reality shows. And so at this point, she has no respect for him. She'll never have any respect for him. He's completely lost her. He needs her to be gone. However, she did trust him coming into this week. Before she was nominated, she was fully on board the Paul train. Was it a good move for Paul to let her become the target this week, Melissa?
That's tough, because I originally was like, why would he go after her? She's no threat to him at all. But I do see his side where he's very worried about her TV show and the fact that there's information coming out during these interviews that could affect him negatively, and that's a way for people to find out stuff, especially when people are on the block, like ready to leave the house, like Cody was. Like, they know they're going, they might as well reveal everything. And that's really dangerous to Paul, especially because he has so many different things going on all at once. So I think that in his mind, it makes sense. And I also think he thinks she's using it as a strategy. And that she's using it to draw information out of people when really, like, I'm pretty sure she's just using it to try and get a TV show afterwards. But he thinks that she's just some brilliant strategic mind. And so I can see where he's coming from and trying to get her out. I think at this point, he definitely needs to get her out. But at the beginning of the week, I was a little confused by her being the target.
Well, I think more than anything, Alex wanted to target somebody who wasn't named Ramses or Whistlenut, and he had to point the rifle in one direction or the other. It looked like it was going to be maybe Christmas, maybe Kevin, maybe Dominique, maybe Mark. I mean, there were a couple of different names floating around. Obviously, Jessica was a possibility, but Alex wanted to make a huge move. It's always seemed like she wanted to make a huge move, so he had to point it at somebody. Look, here's the thing with Dominique's talk show. It's an entity that Paul cannot control and cannot predict. Information comes out in a group setting where that is not where Paul is at his best, even though he's okay in a group setting. He's better one-on-one, just like most Big Brother players are. And it's like Paul is a grizzled veteran. He likes to tell people, hey, I played this game before. I know how things work. The talk show and the way it works and what comes out of it is something he cannot control. So he would rather just remove that variable from the game. And if somebody has to go home this week, it might as well be somebody like Dominique.
Yeah, emphasis on grizzled for sure. That's a good word. I think, yeah. And then, on top of that, we definitely remember, this is probably not still as much of a factor as it was then. But I mean, a big narrative coming into this week was that Cody sold out Dominique and Mark. I mean, Paul really, really was looking for the people that knew about the backdoor plan, and he's sure that somebody had to have known. And I mean, I don't know at this point if he, is still thinking Dominique was in on Cody's plan and maybe Mark was, but that was another thing that set him down this path, was really Cody threw them under the bus pretty hard on his way out the door.
Yeah, can I say it really quickly? For the people who play Big Brother in the future, never underestimate the value of just a flat-out lie. Because Cody told that lie in that talk show setting, and then later on he told the names to Paul. That lie has continued on, even though Mark has tried to deny it. But Mark's reaction to it, I think, amplified the lie in many respects. And even today on the feeds with what's happening with Josh, it's just something that continues to barrel out of control. And it all started with Cody just trying to shake the beehive a little bit. So even if you think you're somebody like Dominique who's down and out, you think there's no way you could possibly stay, just like Cody last week thought there was no way he could possibly stay, just try. You'd be surprised about what people are willing to believe in the Big Brother house when it's a house full of snakes.
Yeah,
especially if you're on the way out the door and you say to them, I have no reason to lie to you. I'm leaving. You might as well just throw something out. Maybe it'll help you stay if you're lucky.
Yeah, I think
I heard production talking. Kevin is Paul's uncle.
It's true.
That's come up lately. Today, I would say for the first time, and I don't know if you want to move on to it really quickly, but I guess I am. Alex has noticed that Paul and Kevin, they talk a lot. She's caught them talking more than once, and I know that Kevin is on Alex's shit list. I do think that the Paul and Kevin show is coming to an end sooner than later. Don't you guys think?
Yeah, Paul has not Paul as much, but Kevin for sure is in a lot of trouble with Alex and Jason. They are really on to the fact that he was that vote to evict Jillian. It was confirmed by Elena as well. They really feel like he lied straight to our faces. And Jason is saying, but he's so much fun. And Alex is saying, no, that's the strategy. We need to cut this guy. Maybe not pre-jury, but we need to cut this guy. And could he be working with Paul? Is this a thing? Should we not trust Paul as much? This is also throwing some shade onto Paul. This is a bad situation for Paul and Kevin for sure. Ultimately, probably won't matter because I still think they're pretty far down on the hit list, but it's getting worse and worse every day we talk about it. Right, Alex?
Yeah, well, I feel like they can't, how is that such a revelation when all weekend, Kevin, Kevin's endgame, every pitch of Kevin's endgame includes Paul. So that's something you should be picking up on. Kevin wants a final four of Alex, Jason, Paul, and him. If you don't think he's working close with Paul, you really need to think about that because Paul is clearly a big piece of everything Kevin pitches. And yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting now because, like you said, I don't think Kevin is their new target. But they were talking today about I think I trust Matt and Raven now more than Kevin. So really what it's done is there's two people I think that have jumped him in the ladder as far as Alex and Jason are concerned. So while it doesn't like drop him all the way down to like the red, he's like falling into the yellow, where these people who really weren't on the team Alex at all to start the week, simply by laying low and being agreeable, are finding themselves in a better position.
Yeah, it's something else. Brent was talking about advice for new house guests. I think there should be some advice. Don't start a talk show or a podcast on the Big Brother feeds, because it appears that everybody that does so goes out like in the first half of the game. We got Big Jeff from Large Jeff Weldon, whatever from Amazing Race on Big Brother 17. He had a podcast. Jeff. He went home pre-jury. We got Dominique now, our own Jordan Parhar. He went home in the first half of the game. Don't start a podcast. Be the co-host. Then you'll get to like Final Five and then get cut. Like Austin and probably Mark and Zach. But don't be the host of a podcast on the live feeds. It's just bad news. Leave the podcasting to us, right, Melissa?
Yes, definitely. That's the number one.
And not only that, but the fans hate it. Like, nobody who watches the live feeds likes these sort of pseudo-structured things that you guys put together in the Big Brother house to put on a show for us. I mean, like I said, the only reason we liked the talk show was because some drama came out of it. But up until then, every time Dominique's talk show came on, I turned the channel.
What about this?
I'd much prefer it to Potball.
What about the I was gonna make a BB-17 reference too. What about the Shelley is HOH musical followed by the Audrey is
that was great.
Is
this real? Is
this
really
is
real?
my life.
It's so good.
Okay. So to finish off the conversation about Paul and Dominique, I personally, I still feel like, I don't know if Dominique was the right target. I know some people have said he had to do it now pre-jury because clearly he does not want her in the jury once he eventually turns on her. She is smart enough to have found him out in the first place, so he doesn't want that happening down the line. This is a good place to take her out. But I just feel like there are other threats to Paul's game right now, between Alex and Jason kind of starting to slowly catch on to him.
No. That's one of those two is right. Alex is not a threat to Paul right now.
Oh.
Jason is a threat to Paul right now.
Well, Jason has gotten Alex to say, okay, maybe not 100%. I don't trust him 100%, but he can't lie, Jason. He can't. He can't lie in front of America. It's impossible. She's just like Dominique, where it's like there are clear rules of the universe, and Paul can't break these rules. It's physically impossible for him to lie. Right, Melissa?
Oh my God. Alex has been killing me this week. I have been so frustrated with her because I'm just desperately hoping that this is all just her way of like infiltrating the group, and that she actually like recognizes that Paul is a threat and doesn't want to take him to the end, but she's trying to pretend like she's in with him. But the stuff that she says to Jason, like when she said, if he breaks his friendship promise, don't you remember the friendship bracelets? That's why they brought him back. He's all about friendship. He can't break that. And first of all, no, he's not all about friendship. That's just a stupid saying that he does. It's one of his catchphrases. Is he all about pissed too? No. And also, she didn't even get a friendship bracelet. So what friendship bracelet is there to break? She's like, but don't you remember, Jason, the friendship bracelets? It's like, yeah, and you didn't get one, so you're not part of that. Like, he doesn't have any. Yours? Yeah, where's your friendship bracelet? So she's been killing me, and every time Jason says something that's smart and makes sense and is actually great, Alex will shut him down and be like, Jason, stop it. Don't speak like that. And when they were up in the HOH and it's Jason, Alex, and Mark. And they're all talking. And Jason says, I don't want to put you on the block, Mark. I want to put up Raven. And Mark's like, thank you. And then Mark leaves for a second. And Alex turns to Jason and she's like, don't disobey me like that. She like told him, she was like disciplining him like a young child. She's like, do not go against me like that in front of him. You are confusing Mark. And it's like, no, stop. Like, you're allowed to have strategy conversations. You're allowed to talk. Let Jason talk. And then every time Jason turns to her and he says, oh, I'm so sorry. You're right. You know, you're way better in this game than me. And then he like laughs. And I'm like, Jason, no, you're the smart one. Please listen to Jason. Listen to Jason, because he's the only one in the house who's doing things. Okay. I was getting very frustrated this week. I was just yelling at my
No, you're not the
screen.
only one. I mean, like Andy Heron was tweeting earlier today that, everybody's talking about, Queen Alex, we love you, Alex, you're amazing. Yes, Queen. But really, it's the rodeo clown who has more of a natural instinct for this game than she does. I mean, she thinks that there's no way that Paul can break his word to her and Jason because then he would lose all of his fan base. Like, she really thinks this, you guys. She said this today in the
What season was she watching?
It's not a put on. Okay. She really thinks this. So Jason's like, oh, and she also said, well, Paul's out, veteran, and Jason's like, well, he's probably going to get to the final two. She's like, well, duh, he's a veteran. So obviously that's going to happen. He's like, well, why does that have to happen? We can.
He's like, shouldn't we get her out? Shouldn't we get him out then?
Well, Jason's quickly becoming one of my favorite people.
Yes, I love Jason. I think he's great. I hate that people are lumping him in with Alex and saying that he's like one of the stupidest players because he's really not. He goes back and forth on his stuff, but if he had a good sounding board, like when he's talking with Jessica or with Ramses, they're making a lot of sense. They're talking like really great strategy, and if they could just pair up, like it would be amazing. But the second he gets to Alex flips it on its head and is like, "No, we have to trust Paul. You're an idiot. I'm the smart one." When it's completely the reverse.
Yeah, and I do think it's important to note that Jason has been doing a good job of communicating to these other people like Jessica, like Kevin, like Ramses, and even Josh to some extent. Jason is really doing a lot of socializing that Alex isn't doing quite as much. Alex is really focusing on Paul, and Jason is going around. He's everybody's best friend on the outside, which is really good. Also, I really enjoy your Alex impersonation, Melissa. It sounds like an angry teacher.
Well, that was the thing I was going to say is that last night I asked someone to make me a meme of Alex as a school teacher standing over Jason as like a little kid at an elementary school desk, and the fan base did not disappoint. I just retweeted this picture right before we went live, so you guys can go to my Twitter and check this out. It's great. I'm so thankful that we have such good fans to make these things.
She treats him like he's an idiot, that he's like her child, and it's so frustrating. She, like, when Mark was leaving the room, she's like, okay, bye. And then the second Mark walked out, she turns to Jason and sharply is like, don't you disobey me. Don't you ever embarrass me in front of Mark again. And I was like shocked that she even said that to him. And he was like, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I embarrassed you like that. So,
Yeah, we talked about how Paul has learned a lot from his previous season. I think the most important thing he's learned clearly is to drop pissed from his vocabulary. We haven't heard him say pissed at all. He's all about friendship. No more pissed. I think that's. I think you're right, Melissa. He's got Alex hooked because he's not pissed anymore.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and apparently, like, let's see. Well, let me try to remember all my cliches. Goonies means never saying die. Love means never having to say you're sorry, and apparently now friendship means never
honesty.
lying.
Yeah. Would you lie to your friends, Alex?
In the Big Brother house, just for fun. Like,
but what if you gave them a friendship bracelet? You can't lie if you give a friendship bracelet.
I'd lie about what's for dinner.
I knew that when Melissa was doing that impression right now, I knew that it was just like a song. Do you guys ever listen to Hairspray? It's like there's a song where it's like, don't disobey me, don't contradict me, don't even think about going to that audition. I mean, that's like what you sound like right now.
I totally know that song. So
Melissa, the angry school teacher, watching. Paul again going after Dominique seems a little early, but he seems to be pulling it off. However, he then also pushes really hard for Mark to be the replacement nominee. This is again, I feel like, a step too far. Paul is in a great spot. Why do you keep using up all your chips? This is exactly how I felt about Paulie, where Paulie was in such a great spot last year, but he just kept using everything he had. Any like social capital he had, he immediately spent it. And I feel like Paul is he's not spending it as quickly as Paulie did, but he's definitely spending it a lot. And to get Mark on the block, I don't feel like it was important at all. And it really sketched Jason out in particular. And I think that's one of the causes of Jason now sort of being like, you know what? Why was Paul pushing this so hard? I don't like this, right, Brent? This is just this is not good.
Yeah, this is sort of like the Garden of Eden when Adam and Eve open their eyes. I feel like it's a little bit, which is appropriate because of what Dominique's been talking about the whole time. I mean, I feel like Jason's been watching this and he's like, "Wow, what did you say, Alex? I missed that." What?
Den of Eden.
Oh, okay, Den of Eden. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, that would be more appropriate. I was like, I knew it was funny because the robot was laughing, but I didn't hear it. Anyway, so yeah, more than anything, I feel like it's just something where he's like, this is akin to somebody like that you trust, that you don't think lies, and you see that person in a group setting and they lie to other people, but you know they're not lying to you, but it opens your eyes to the fact that, oh, they're capable of doing that. And later on down the line, I might need to be careful of that. I feel like Jason saw Paul working really hard. He sees what he's doing, and for the first time, he's like, "Oh yeah, why does Paul get this much say in everything? Like he wasn't the veto holder. He wasn't HOH. He didn't have shit." But yet we're letting him just dictate everything. Like that's crazy. And not only that, he's a veteran. He's good at this game. We should get rid of him. It's crazy. Yes.
Yeah. This morning, Jason even was telling Alex. He was saying, Alex told him, we'll tell Paul what we're going to do with the veto. And he's like, why do we have to tell Paul? He's not our dad. And then he was like, I'm thinking that Paul's been going around telling us, like pressuring us to put Mark on the block and use the veto. But then he's been going around to everyone else telling them that he's telling us not to use the veto, that he doesn't want us to use the veto. And now he just wants me to use it and look like an idiot. Look like make me look bad. And I was like, thank you, Jason. Once again, Jason has the light bulb moment and he's coming in clutch and telling Alex the truth. But I don't know if she's buying it, unfortunately.
Well, it doesn't benefit Jason to put up Mark. Jason and Mark have a good relationship. I mean, even when Jason was totally on the outs and Cody's whole group was a thing, like Mark was talking to Jason, like that was one of the few places he had lines of communication open. So this idea that they're going to railroad him into using the veto so that they can nominate someone he doesn't want them to nominate, like, no, you have to work with the person who has the veto if you expect them to, play your game. Like they may be your ally, but I mean, he's not wrong. Like getting rid of Mark or, even putting up Mark really just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for him. I mean, if Mark were to come down off the block, I mean, he could very easily do the Jeff Schroeder thing. We're like, no, I get it. You put me up there, you make me dance from a dinner a little bit. But if I win the HOH, expect to do some dancing of your own there.
Oh my God. Although I do want to say that, like, I was a little disappointed that he didn't take Jessica off the block because I felt like that she picked him to play in the veto, and I felt like that might earn him some points with her and that they could team up. And I feel like now she just still feels on the outs. She doesn't really know like who's on her side. When I thought that when they were wearing the frog costumes and they were talking a lot and sitting on the lily pads and they were bonding, I felt like they could become a good team. But unfortunately, he didn't earn any points with her this week. He won the veto after she picked him and then didn't help her.
Yeah, I think he's still pretty good with her. I mean, it's not like she has much of anyone else anyway. And he is socializing probably some of the most with her. Ramses is definitely trying as well. So I'm not super unhappy with Jason doing this. Although I do think, obviously, if he does use that veto, it gets him some points, but it also loses him points with Mark because he promised Mark it multiple times that he wouldn't use it because he didn't want to risk him going on the block. So it was a tricky situation to be in. It would have been much easier for him if Alex had just listened to him and put Raven on the block.
That's why he should have forced her to put, like, he should have convinced her and said, you need to put Raven on the block. I just, every time she would be like, no, we're not doing that because Paul doesn't want us to. And then he would just back off. He needed to just forcefully tell her, look, we got to do this. Just do it. Don't listen to Paul. But Alex is impossible to talk to sometimes, apparently.
Blow his whistle nut on the whole plan.
Yeah. Jason reminds me, he's like that no nonsense kind of guy. I pointed this out in his pregame interviews where he went into the interviews being like, so I'm actually on the show, right? He's very skeptical, and it's really working well for him in the Big Brother house. It didn't work well for him in the first week when he thought there was some grand scheme going on after Christmas got nominated, but it's working for him now where there is a grand scheme going on with Paul, and he's kind of getting onto, like, he's the kind of guy that, like, every time Paul says something, he's just like, he's asking the obvious questions that everyone else should be asking, but nobody is thinking to. And he's providing a very valuable function. People just need to start listening to him. Unfortunately, I think because of last week, because he was so off the mark last week, Alex doesn't really trust him with that kind of information because he's a little too emotional when trying to, like, go after people. She's just like, she feels like she is the strategically superior member of their alliance, and she doesn't really listen to his input. But he's chipping away at it slowly. You're seeing a little bit of Alex saying, yeah, okay, maybe. So, yeah.
I'm hopeful that now that Mark saw that they were so willing to put him up as a pawn and that they were willing to just essentially sacrifice him. I'm hopeful that maybe now he'll step back and be like, wait, hold on. Why was I the best choice for a pawn? Why didn't they want anyone else? Does this mean I'm kind of on the outs of this alliance? Why was Paul pushing so hard for me to go up? Elena made the deal to keep me safe, but now look. And so I'm hopeful that maybe now Mark's going to start asking these questions and coming to the realization that Paul is not on his team.
Right.
Yeah.
Can we talk really quickly about that deal that Elena made? Again, for Big Brother players, if you're going to make a deal with somebody, make sure it's specific and small. Anything that sounds too good to be true is never going to be a real deal. Elena made a deal. The question of whether or not to put Mark up on the block and to whether or not to use the veto, that deal has never come up in the reasoning of whether or not we should do this or not. It was never, should we use the veto and put Mark up on the block? Like, what about that deal we made with Elena? Like, they didn't even talk about that. Like, it wasn't even on the table. So it just shows you that it's not worth the paper that it's printed on.
Yes. So we also had Josh. I wrote down, and I swear I had this in my notes before the house meeting, right before the podcast, that Josh is starting to get a little antsy. He's been running around to people, especially Jason, saying things like, we need to go after those other people. They're dangerous. They're still together. If you don't think they're still together, you're crazy. They are coming after us. We got to go. We got to go. He's talking to Dominique way too much, letting her talk about his stuff, her stuff, and it's all going crazy. And it has all culminated into this big fight that happened right before we came on the show. Sorry it took so long to get here, but oh man, I was writing. I was like trying to finish up getting all the questions together, and they're arguing on the feeds. And I'm like, God, this is too much. It's too much to handle. This all started because Josh and Mark were playing pool, and Josh has had a situation before where there have been bets that you need to drink pickle juice if you lose, and he's refused before. So this is a touchy subject already, right? They have this bet going on. This time it's pickle juice. You lose the game, you need to drink pickle juice and hot sauce. Josh, he double taps the ball or whatever. I don't know pool terminology super well. He scratches it. He gets the ball in, but he does it in an illegal maneuver, right? And then claims that he wins. And Mark is having none of it. He's like, no. You double tapped. This is no good. You need to drink this pickle juice and hot sauce. And Josh is like, no, I won. And Mark is like, all right, fine. And he just throws it in Josh's face.
Throws the hot sauce in Josh's face.
Pickle juice and hot sauce combined into Josh's face. And Josh is not happy, right, Melissa?
He was not happy at all. He runs inside and grabs more condiments, comes out, gets it all over Mark. And Mark at this point was kind of thinking that this was all fun and games. He was kind of like laughing and trying to hug him afterwards to get condiments on him. But Josh was like, no, dude, I'm serious. And he's just like, you come at me. They like did this whole thing. Then he calls a whole house meeting, essentially. I mean, he doesn't call it, but he sits in the pool. It was like the weirdest setup. He's standing around in the hot tub. He's standing in the hot tub, and everyone's like gathered around him, just trying to talk with him. And he's like, you come at me. Anyone else? You're going to come at me? I'm fine. That's fine. I've got my word. You said my word. And like, everyone was like, what is going on here? I thought this was a fight between you and Mark. I didn't know that this was everybody else. So then Jess gets involved, and then Christmas gets involved at one point, and Elena's involved, and Dominique's involved. Everybody's involved. And it doesn't make any sense why anybody is involved at this point.
You might say that Josh got heated in the hot tub.
Wow.
Well, this is like one of those, like, it was so childish to listen to. Like, I almost felt I was hearing, like, you can't triple stamp a double stamp. Like, it was that kind of, like, absurd level of, like, what are we even talking about right now?
Yeah, and it really was a situation where it was like, okay, this is a fight between Josh and Mark about the pool game, about, oh, Josh, I got hot sauce in my eyes. It's in my mouth. This is not cool. Mark tried to apologize to Josh. He said, I'm sorry, man. It got out of hand. I'm sorry it got you. I feel really bad. And Josh is like, no, I have no respect for you.
Well, there's a couple of different issues that are going on here. Number one, guys, remember that we haven't really touched on this, but Josh is a have-not this week. And not only is he a have-not, he also went for the have-not challenge and picked the wrong disc. So he's a have-not for 2 weeks. And he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to be very cool being a have-not for 1 week, much less 2 weeks. So I said earlier on Twitter that I knew this was coming. He's not going to be able to last 2 weeks and not explode. This is exactly week 1 Josh with Megan, where he starts getting in his head, he starts isolating himself. It's him against the world, and he just lashes out. I think was it one of you guys or maybe somebody else on Twitter who put up a picture of like some woman just hitting everybody in a crowd. Like it was
Karen.
where it was just like, like he didn't care who he was yelling at or making fun of or trying to get into a fight with. He just wanted to fight with somebody because he was going to make him feel better and help him blow off steam. He obviously came at Mark. That little lie that Cody told about Mark and Dominique being in on the plan to nominate Paul during week 1, that came up during the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Josh has talked about the fact that, Mark, you can't trust your words. See, you tried to backdoor Paul, and look what happened. And so Paul comes out like, what's going on, guys? It's a mess. And then finally, everything's calmed down on the feeds right now. Josh is like sitting in a room by himself, isolated in thought. And I'm sure he feels terrible again. And he's looking at everything that just happened. It's like me when I was like, I don't know, maybe like 14, but Josh is an adult. So he's like a man child who just like does things. And then he's like, oh, that was really a bad idea. Yeah.
Yeah, he really is. He really was like, if you've ever been to a concert where there's mosh pits, it's like there's always one crazy person that just goes ballistic and flailing their arms around, hitting everyone in sight. He was absolutely that person. It somehow went from arguing about hot sauce with Mark to arguing about as Brent mentioned, the Cody lie about him knowing about the Paul situation. Then Jessica got involved. Like, whoa. Since when are you immune from lying, Josh? You lied to me about the Jillian vote. And then he got into it with her. He got into it with Elena for a little bit, but then Elena was able to back stuff up. And he's like, Elena, she knows what she's talking. She throws out facts. She's a solid person. She's a human being. And like Alex and Jason are just like dancing in their seats, like watching this. They're loving it. Matt is giving thumbs up. He's just like super happy with it. I just saw that Paul was talking to Matt. Like, I hope Josh wins HOH because he's just going to take a random shot in the dark. It was absolutely crazy. It was mayhem. There's been a lot of drama this week. Liking the feed so far, right, Melissa?
Oh, yeah. It's very entertaining. And I just feel like in this situation, there were a lot of mistakes made. Like, first of all, Mark should not have reacted like that. I mean, first of all, know your audience. You know that Josh isn't going to take it well. Like, second, don't throw it at anybody, period. It just like, it's never a funny joke to get someone all dirty. I don't know. At least for me, I will never be happy about that, getting splashed in the face with a drink or whatever. It's like he should know from Real Housewives that never ends up going well for someone. But anyway, I feel like that was a big mistake. Josh's overreacting was a big mistake. I mean, obviously he's going to be upset, but this is Big Brother where you have to keep your temper down, keep everything cool, and pretend like you're cool with everybody in order to further things along in the game. But whatever. Then, you've got Jessica jumping in on it when she was in a really good position this week, like coming into it. And now all of a sudden she's bringing up stuff from last week that I was hoping and really happy that everyone was forgetting about. So now that's in the forefront of people's mind. And you've got Christmas arguing, Dominique arguing, like people who should not be arguing in this situation and should be trying to lay low. They're bringing themselves into this, which it's not smart, but it makes for great feeds.
Yeah,
so
really
I'm
quickly,
very happy with it, but
the chat room is like people in the chat room just step back. Like there's a lot of things going on here that we have to recount. Obviously, the fact that Mark is a have-not is coming into play here. Obviously, the fact that he's a bit horny and grumpy is also coming into play here. But the fact that he's horny, I saw someone in the chat room say that is not his problem because Elena asked him if he wanted a blowjob last night, and he said no, that's gross. It grosses me out. I'm like, Did y'all catch that? She offered him a blowjob, and he said, "No, that grosses me out."
Your refusal grosses me out, Mark.
Mm-hmm, right. We've already established that he's a beta. It's expected behavior of betas.
So yes, again, Mark did start this, to be clear, but Josh's reaction to it is completely and utterly terrible, but it's to be expected because that's going to happen with somebody like Josh. Again, both people are at fault here. Mark should never have done this to Josh because throwing something on someone, it's just like, it's so childish, and it's a pool game, and who cares? And even though I know, Taran, you said that he has tried to welch on the whole pickle juice bet before, from what I've seen, he's tried to drink it and he's gotten it down most of the time. Like, I feel like he's made a honest to God effort as far as that bet goes. But the hot sauce is a new thing, and it's just like more than anything, it's just too like what I would say in my real life, it's like two straight alphas who are just like going at each other and like, we don't know what to do anymore. Like after they get done with it, they'll just like say, man, I'm sorry. That was bad. My bad, dude. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, well, I thought the best part by far wasn't the act of tossing. It was Mark's body language immediately after, because he throws the drink and then he goes like, "What's up now, bro?" It's good. What's really good? Like, I love that move. Not just the audacity to throw acid in someone's face, but then to just be like,
yeah, for people on a podcast, like Alex is doing it like this, like, "What's up, dude? What's up? What you got now?"
That's what just happened. Yeah. What's step B? Because I just took the
yeah,
but
it's funny.
And well, just really quick. Also, I just wanted to cap off that thing. Was like, I can't remember if it was Brent or Colin Stone who said this on Thursday, but like, man, Josh would really benefit from a morphine drip in there. He's the guy that needs the drugs.
Yes, I think it was Colin Stone who said that, and he would. Again, Christmas is getting painkillers every 2 hours. Josh doesn't get anything like that right now, and that would really help him.
Well, the people have had some pills before. They just need some prescriptions. So yeah, it's funny because Jason has had lots of conversations actually with Josh about this very thing, the pickle juice. Like, I always thought, like, Jason, stop harping about who cares about the pickle juice. This doesn't matter. He's always talking about the pickle juice. It's become the thing with Jason to Josh, like, Josh, just drink the pickle juice. He uses it as a metaphor now. Like, you need to, like, if you say you're going to do something, do it. You need to be solid. You need to drink the pickle juice, Josh. And the fact that he didn't ultimately actually literally drink pickle juice has gotten him into this huge blow. Who knew? Jason, again, he knows everything. So
I'm going to catch up this bastard right now. I'll tell you that. In no time.
That was worse than the hot tub one. All right.
Well, it looks like in many people's eyes that Josh has gone to the top of the target list when he wasn't before. I still think that things will settle down. And again, I've said this before, I'm hoping it holds true. Even though Josh is a bit of a lightning rod in the house and he's a bit of a clown, I feel like people think that, like, he's our clown and, like, we understand him. We understand that he goes off the handle and does shit like this. So I'm hoping that holds true. But I know that there are a lot of people in the house that are not really happy with Josh.
He stormed in to get the ketchup and mayo, and then he came out. He was like, he was in Tombstone or something. He's got like these like condiment 6-shooters. He's like coming for you.
He like slung it at him. It was like so crazy.
The fastest draw in the Big Brother house.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, you feeling lucky?
Not since Netta have we seen this speed with condiments.
All right. So for anyone who hasn't been paying attention to the Christmas Left the House saga, she has revealed that potentially the call wasn't hung up when she voted in the live eviction. She potentially knows that there were 3 votes to evict Ramses when they went to commercial break. So she knew it was the first 3 votes. There are no other votes to evict. And this is some potential outside interference that people have been talking about all week long. It basically, if she ever finds out who the person who voted second was, she will be able to discover that it was in fact Kevin that voted Ramses. Even though it is starting to get around, this is probably Kevin. This is information that it could potentially be released at any moment, and is a very unfortunate situation that this information was released at all. Melissa, I don't think I've heard your take on this. How do you feel about this?
I'm not a huge fan of it, but she hasn't said for sure if it's that she heard it on the call or what. I mean, there's the possibility, very slim, but there's the possibility that maybe she just knows that they try and break it up for drama and that she was the first one before the commercial break or something. I don't know. Or she's just, she's just speculating. I don't know. But I don't know for sure if she heard it. I don't like that she heard it. But I mean, I feel like this point's already been talked to death on Twitter. So, I mean, I don't know. It's disappointing, but at the same time, the fact that nobody even remembers or knows who the second vote is, like, well, you guys can't really use the information if you don't know that. So hopefully it just kind of dies out and that's the end of it.
Yeah,
right.
Cassie in the chat is saying that she feels like production probably told her to shut this down, right? I feel like that's It's probably likely, right, Brent?
I'm hoping that's true. I hope she doesn't really pursue this. It would, but on the other hand, I mean, are we really going to be sticklers about the game here? I mean, this is a woman that's been outside the Big Brother house not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 times, and may do it again if she needs any other help. I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I feel like I'm like with Melissa. I'm like, I feel like this has been beat to death by me, and I'm just not going to say anything about it anymore. Like, Christmas is in the house. We're going to have to deal with it. By the way, really quickly on the feeds, just going back to the Josh and Mark fight real quick. Even though Josh is the one who went out of control, like I said, I feel like they know what they're going to get from Josh. I'm watching Paul and Matt talking on the feeds about Mark, and 2 things are happening with Mark. Number one, he said he's going to vote against Dominique this week, but he's like, but I'm not going to campaign against her. So he's already hedging a little bit on what he said he was going to do as far as being willing to vote out Dominique. Number 2, that makes him look shady in the eyes of other people because he's willing to talk to Dominique, and then now this happens, and I see Matt and Mark saying, Matt saying Mark was absolutely wrong. Paul's like, he was totally wrong. That was over the line. Matt's like, that was ridiculous. So they're already starting to like get their next target in sight. And this goes back to what Davon Rogers tweeted on Twitter earlier this week, where she was like, there's a target, somebody's going home. Why do people isolate them? Why do people ostracize them? I'm like, bitch, because that's gameplay. If you're seen talking with the person and you're seen comforting and, strategizing potentially with somebody who may be walking out the door, people think that you are doing something and you could quickly become the next target. So that's why people don't do it. And this is what's happening to Mark right now, because he's being sympathetic to Dominique, and then something else happens in the house, and now all of a sudden everybody's against Mark.
I mean, it's a game of targeting people for arbitrary reasons. So you give someone a reason, arbitrary or otherwise, and
that is my least favorite part of Big Brother, is the fact that they feel that they have to isolate the person who's leaving and just completely destroy them and nobody speak to them, make them feel like just like they're nothing, like they're meaningless to everybody. It is so cruel. It's not, I don't think that should be part of the game. Like, I wish people would just, be bigger people than that and treat them like humans and just be like, look, you are going home, but let's just end on a good note. I hate how they just shun them, and it's so terrible to me. I don't like it at all, and I don't think that it's good gameplay. I think that if everybody just acted like nice, good people and didn't isolate them, then it wouldn't have to be part of strategy.
I will say,
I think it's great gameplay. I don't think it's nice. I think it's correct gameplay.
I need to shout out quickly to Robin Cass. If you ever put me on Big Brother, can you make sure that Melissa is on my season, please? I feel like she'll be great. A very useful person.
The chat room correctly points out that Dominique has been isolating herself. So it's a little bit like the chicken and the egg, like which came first. I do feel like that the house guests in general have been isolating Dominique, but I also feel like she's been helping them by sitting in a room and not really talking with everybody else. So again, everybody's at fault a little bit here.
I feel like it's kind of human nature, Yes. You want to feel tribal. You want to feel like we have our people and those are the outsiders. And when you're kicking someone out of the game,
it's a cruel
hard.
game.
Yes,
they talk all the time. They're like, I legitimately feel like that person is dead when they're voted out. I mean, instinct and fear and these things take over. I agree with you.
And people feel guilty about it too. They feel like I'm not only am I kicking this person out, but if you're Paul, especially, like you're like, I set this person up to be kicked out, and part of your own sort of coping mechanism is to be like, well, they deserved it. I don't want to have to feel bad. I don't want to talk to them. When you feel guilty, you usually push the person you feel guilty about away even further. You make it even worse. That's kind of what we see in real life. So it's even more amplified on Big Brother. And it's also, of course, a strategy to keep them from talking to everyone and revealing information that they might potentially not.
But it's not even that people are just talking to her less and being like, okay, let me stay away from her. Paul is legitimately telling people, don't talk to her. Don't speak to her. No one can talk to her.
For his game, for them not to.
It's
like
terrible.
She has information.
I know, but it's like, it's just cruel at a certain point. Like, I don't feel the need to make people feel horrible and feel like they just like make them cry and feel sad. And I don't know. I just think that, I don't know. I'm too soft, I guess.
Yeah,
but I just think that
they're byproducts of correct gameplay. Yeah, I mean, this is a cruel game.
I don't think you need to do that. I don't know.
We've got to harden
You don't
Melissa
need
up.
to, but I think it's the difference between like 98% sure that nothing funny happens on Dominique's way out the door versus like 91%. And in a game for $500,000, like I'm maximizing my chances every time, I feel like. So I get what you're saying though.
I think that maybe don't talk with them in a room alone. Like don't sit there and isolate yourself with them. But I think that if she's in the kitchen with everybody else, you should like offer her a snack or like just talk to her generally. Like you if everybody's in there, don't just like completely ignore her and let her just walk on by or get her little snack by herself. Like, you know, you might as well say something. I don't know.
Well, if you have the control, though, like if she's your target and you have the control to bury her days in advance before the vote happens to ensure that like there's no way she can save herself with the vote through like, you know, whatever means necessary, I think you have to exercise your options. And then, I mean, I think at that point, then like people associated with her are starting to go down with the ship as well. Like they are like, you know, Brent was talking about, they're establishing Mark as a target now through proximity to Dominique and his like unwillingness to jump off a sinking ship. So by ostracizing, they're leading, like other people are beginning to, you know, show signs that like, oh, good, he's sticking his neck out. So that means I don't have to.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to that article title. So, you know, Survivor. I don't know if Survivor is what we aspire to, but Big Brother is definitely who we are. Big Brother shows us who we are at our worst. And this is human behavior, like it or not. You know, like the idea that, you know, if somebody is being shunned, then you can't go talk to them or you're going to associate yourself with them. And when you're playing a game where you're targeting people, it's going to rub off on you if you do. And you're looking for any reason to target somebody. And that's a very straightforward and obvious one.
Here's the thing. More than anything, it's incumbent upon Dominique to change. Dominique has to change what's going on here. The other people in the house cannot do it for her. If Dominique goes out and inserts herself into conversations, walks into rooms, starts socializing with people, then that dynamic can change. But it's on the person who's up on the block to change the dynamic, not on anybody in the rest of the house. Because why should they stick their neck out for her? It's on Dominique to change it. And she can do
exactly.
But she doesn't want to.
If Dominique went up to Paul and said, "Hey, Paul, I need to talk to you," Paul wouldn't turn her down. He'd be willing to talk. He wants to make sure if she's got something to say, I got to hear it. I can't avoid her. What if she goes to somebody else instead? And if she goes to the person who is telling people to stay away from her and she's acting social with everyone else, then she's going to have a much easier time integrating herself back into the group. But she is isolating herself to some extent. And that does put an extra level of barrier around her in terms of if anybody does go and talk to her, it's definitely of their own volition. They're reaching out to her, which is just another step further to be like, why are you doing that? Why aren't you letting her come to you?
And honestly, this is something that just occurred to me, but like to bring it back to today, I think this speaks really to why people are getting such a kick out of Josh if they're not the ones in the line of fire, because again, this is like another way for like, oh, good, you're making a target out of yourself. So that means like other people are going to be, you know, ahead of me potentially on this, this chart. And, you know, I've compared Paul to Paulie and maybe Josh to Paul before. And I think this is like such a great example. This really reminded me of when Frank was done and the whole house wanted Frank out. And Paul decides like, oh, I can endear myself to these people by really just like laying in on Frank and really kicking him while he's down. And that feels a little bit like what Josh is doing here with Mark, because like by like antagonizing Mark and going at him the way he did, like it seems really petulant and childish and petty to us, the third party observers. But like in the house, weirdly, somehow it seems to have bought Josh clout because he's willing to like say the things that people don't want to have to say themselves, and he'll like take the bullets for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is another thing to talk about. I know it was talked about a little bit on the Sunday night recap, but there's a lot of controversy surrounding Raven. There's a lot of people saying that, you know, she's exaggerating her illness, that she's attention seeking. This has been making the rounds here.
That her family are the same Waltons from Arkansas that founded Walmart. Sure.
Yeah. Lots of conspiracy theories. People love quote unquote exposing people, so they're really jumping on this train. I personally feel like you know, I'm not a doctor and I'm not going to pretend to be one, so I'm not going to say that she's exaggerating or that she's not terminal or that any of that stuff. I do think that she is attention seeking. She definitely brings it up any chance that she can get. Do I blame her for that if she is terminal? Not entirely, but it's definitely annoying and I can see that. But I'm definitely not going to take it a step further and say this is a scam artist. We should be trying to shun her or expose her. Do you feel the same way, Alex?
Yeah, I do. I agree with what you said. I mean, I'm not qualified. This is above my pay grade for sure. Although I do feel you missed a great opportunity to say I'm not a doctor, but I do play one on a podcast.
Well, everybody loves being an armchair doctor. Like, oh, you know what? I Googled this disease and I looked on the Wikipedia page and it doesn't match up with what she said. So she must be a liar.
Who doesn't like Doogie Howser reruns?
Yeah. If anyone's interested, I did see a Reddit thread where somebody who did have this disease was talking about their experience with it. It does seem like this is not something that is necessarily, this is caused by a variety of things. Raven has a multitude of illnesses, one of which caused the, I can't even say it.
Gastroparesis.
Yes, the gastroparesis. And
let's call it GP. It's GP.
Yes.
Yeah.
The man with the doctor in the house.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And so there's a lot. It's a complicated situation. It's a complicated disease in the first place. It's hard to diagnose. It's hard to like be a visible thing for people. So again, I feel, make fun of Raven for being attention seeking all you want. We don't need to pretend we're doctors. We don't need to pretend we know something that we can't possibly know unless we are her doctor. We'll make fun of when Raven slides in when Christmas comes into the house, like, oh yeah, did you see my foot? Because that's annoying, right? But we don't need to go any further.
And that happened, yeah.
I feel like it's not necessary to take it any further than that. It's not going to benefit anyone. We can make fun of her all we want. We don't need to be like, oh, shun these people, they're horrible, scammers, so on and so forth.
And the comparative thing is tough too, because like I understand, like, yeah, if you've had gastroparesis, I'm sure the natural thing is to compare your experience to hers. But like you said, I mean, she's got some other ailments she's talked about that could play all kinds of factors, including one that is apparently so rare, like she just calls it Raven's disease, because there's like two people, like one other person besides her, like on the planet apparently, that has it. So I mean, if that's in fact true, like, then who knows what complications that element adds to whatever else is going on. It's impossible.
And there's a lot of bit of like there's a lot of medical lingo going on here, because like if you have diabetes type 2 and you don't treat it, then it is by definition a terminal illness. Like it will eventually kill you. So gastroparesis, again, is it a terminal illness? Well, untreated, yeah, it's probably going to kill you, but there are treatments available. And I know that she has a pacemaker. You can get another one. She's talked about, well, once this pacemaker gets to its 15th one, that's it. But on the other hand, her mom's on her 6th pacemaker, so I feel like she's generally going to be okay. Look, I have said, as I said on a podcast with Rob, I think we can confine our criticism of Raven and her like attention-seeking desires to the things that are happening in the Big Brother house, which is the fact that she has a foot that has 5 stitches in it, and yet she seems to have more problems with it than Christmas, who is in a full leg cast at the moment. Like, she's asking people to carry her, even though I've had stitches in my foot before, and I seem to walk just fine. At one point on the feeds, I caught her limping on the wrong leg. Obviously, that's been misplayed or played on Twitter many, many, many times. And obviously, when Christmas came back in the house, all of a sudden she decides to start limping really, really well again, and takes off her sock to show Christmas, hey, like, look at my foot. Like, it's all about Raven with Raven. The funny part is that I saw Matt and Raven talking about, Christmas, we originally thought this was going to be like 3 to 4 weeks. But now she's going to be here for like 10 weeks. Like, she's going to be recovering for like 10 weeks, which is basically the entire game. That really changes our view of Christmas in this game. And Raven was like, we should probably get rid of her, which of course just led into everybody saying, see, Raven's jealous of Christmas. So I feel like Raven invites a lot of this with what she says. But on the other hand, I feel like we can criticize her by confining our thoughts to what's happening in the Big Brother house.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need to take it any further. And like, do you really want to be the person that's like, oh, she's lying about being terminal, and then what? Like, what? She passes away in 2 years, and because you're gonna be like attacking her like this, and like all like because you thought you knew something you didn't about a very complicated series of diseases. Just like let's simmer down a little. We don't like, this is a sensitive topic, and criticizing diseases in the first place, it can get very tricky. And
it never gets you anywhere when you start criticizing. I apologize for interrupting, Taran. I thought you were done. And I know people make fun of me on Twitter for doing that, but I really did think you were done. It gets into a really bad area when you start criticizing somebody for the severity of their disease. I was listening to someone on Facebook talking about addiction, how it's not really a disease at all. It's a weakness, which of course I, as a recovering addict, took great offense to and laid into them initially. And there's nothing more infuriating than being told that believing is not true. So I don't feel like we can do that to Raven because only Raven knows what's happening in Raven's life.
Exactly. And Nat, Alex, you have some company. I'm now also a snowflake, apparently.
There you go. Yeah. There's worse things to be, I think. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, I think, none of us are Miss Cleo, the psychic, or the Big Brother podcaster. So, we don't know what's going on here. And then also, it's just like, it's not, like you said, it's just really not a good look to be speculating on something like this when we just have no information. And, not to be morbid, but technically we're all terminal.
Right? I was just thinking, you know what? I just
don't know what it is yet.
Alex, I have a crystal ball upstairs. I'm thinking that we should do like a little bit on this show, like it's the Miss Cleo show, and I've got the crystal ball, and I'll look into the future of everybody in the Big Brother house. What do you think?
I love that. Yeah, we should definitely do a seance. That's great.
That would
I
be
could do the Den of 10.
I'll do that one time.
You can wear like the Johnny Carson hat. It would be great.
Right? Yeah. What was his name? I forget. I'd have to look that up. Oh God.
Oh man.
Oh, okay. It's okay. Go ahead.
It's gonna kill me.
All right. So let's talk about the battle back. Alex, we were talking this morning, and you were pointing out to me that they played the veto early. Paul's been thinking there's probably an eviction coming up, but the reason they played it early was probably because they've been doing the battle back, right?
Yeah, I wish I had thought to mention this on the podcast this morning. I waited until after we were off the air to sound smart because I hadn't slept all night. But yeah, I mean, right. So I think this is a big factor here, right? Like, why did we do the veto on Friday night? Why were they locked down on Saturday and it seemed like they could hear building going on? And I think, if we go back to last year, they didn't keep Glenn in no hotel for a month and changed. Glenn didn't even get a water bottle. He competed relatively quickly. And then when he lost, they're like, oh, good. Only one hotel room we have to pay for. So they're not like keeping everyone in sequester all this time. They're gradually playing these battle backs. And I really do think, like, based on that, kind of putting the pieces together a little bit, the more I thought about it, I'm like, I'll bet you Cameron versus Cody happened yesterday. And yes, I am assuming Jillian lost already.
Yeah, and if I'm putting on my tinfoil hat, there was talk that they accidentally played Cameron's name on the voiceover in the house. So maybe that was for a reason. Maybe that Cameron is on their mind right now. What do you think, Melissa?
Cody was out back making freaking noises.
You just want an extra draft player.
Whoa. Since when are we talking about the draft here?
When have I ever cared about the draft? Yeah,
but
right. Mr. Paul is mine.
Taryn, the best part about that was Raven was like, did you guys hear they called Malcolm's name over the thing? Like, I thought it was a joke that they couldn't remember his name, but it's happening. Like, they don't remember his name right now. So, again, I think people on Twitter are like, I'm afraid if Cameron comes back, it'll just be a revolving door. I feel like out of all four of those people, I feel like he has the least chance of it being a revolving door. He'll be like the new toy in the house that everybody wants to play with. He'll be fine.
Yeah, hey, new Steve, come here.
Cameron is going to enter the house, and everybody is going to be Kevin when Nicole came into the house. Like, wait, who is this? Are we supposed to know this person?
Do we know this person?
Tell me if I'm supposed to know who this is.
Shelby with Big Jeff.
Like, it's me. It's Cameron. Don't you remember? You voted me out.
Oh yeah, Morgan.
Oh, Malcolm. Yeah, I remember you. I remember. We were best of friends. It wasn't me that voted you out. You pulled your pants down in front of me. I know who you are, Malcolm. I know.
As much as I'd love to see Cody come back, I think Cameron coming back would be really exciting because I think that Cameron would, because he's, a super fan or whatever, I don't think he'd just become a minion of Paul. I think that he would kind of see what's up and know kind of what he has to do. At least I'm hoping. But I don't think he would just come in and be boring. I think he would be one of the more exciting people to come back, him and Cody.
Yeah, and Cody has said in some of his exit interviews, if I get back in that house, I'm probably working with Paul. Why wouldn't I? He's in charge of the game. I'm gonna ride his coattails.
I said that I wanted Cameron to come back, but I would love for Dominique to come right back in and just be like Paul's face to be like cracked. That would just be wonderful. And I know people aren't rooting for that because we have Dominique right now, but she's about to leave and she hates Paul. I feel like it would be fun to see her come back.
The problem is if she comes back, I don't see her changing anything. Like, I don't see people rallying with her to get Paul out. I feel like she'd just come back and they'd be like, oh, great. Now we just have to ignore her for another week. I don't think that
she'd
can
have to
rally
win.
the troops.
She needs
she'd
HOH
have to
power
win an
to
HOH.
get back in.
Yeah.
We'd get a great shot of Paul's face, and then that would be like the best content we get for Dominique coming back. That'd be it. All right.
Taran, I can't believe I had forgotten about that lap dance, man. I'm sitting here just laughing about it. It's like none of them remember Cameron's name. Oh, but I could pick that hairy butt crack out of a lineup. I'll tell you right now.
All right, let's go to the stock watch here. Let's start with Kevin, because I feel like Kevin's stock has probably fallen more than most. Certainly not more than Dominique's, but we'll start with Kevin, who I think we were all pretty high on him last week. He was doing pretty well, but we were scared that he was going to get caught. It seems like he probably has been caught. Brent, how are you feeling about Kevin?
Sell faster than hotcakes at the IHOP. Like, there's no way I'm buying any Kevin stock right now because I feel like people are onto him. Elena has confirmed to Alex, like you said, that Kevin was the vote. So I feel like it's only going to get out that Kevin's really playing this game hard, and also that he was the extra vote to evict Ramsey's last week. And the only person who really knows that is Paul. And that's eventually going to come out. It may come out via Christmas. I'm hoping not, but it may come out via something else if Kevin eventually says, yeah, that was me. And also, if they confirm with him that you did it the first week, he's going to have more incentive to just get it all out there and say, yeah, that was me the second week. And again, he could say, look, hey, Paul told me to do it. I was just doing what Paul told me to do. And how to, like, if he does that, if he attacks Paul, I don't think he would attack Paul. But he would say, Paul made me do it. And then, how does Paul react to that? Does he call Kevin a liar? I don't feel like you can treat Kevin the same way he did Dominique. That wordplay isn't going to work on Kevin. So it could be interesting times. But again, I would put more money on Paul at this point. So I'm going to sell Kevin.
Alex, Melissa, you both in agreement here? So sell Kevin?
I would just keep Kevin. I would stay with Kevin because I just feel like he's going to be here around for another few weeks, and maybe by that point his target will diminish. So I'm thinking that other people are bigger targets than him right now, and people like him. They think he's funny and fun and like a great guy to have around the house. So I don't think that they're going to immediately target him next week. I think that he has some time to, rally people around him again and earn back trust, especially if he doesn't keep throwing in hinky votes.
Yeah.
I love that Doom Tribe in the chat says that nobody in the house is buying Kevin, so obviously we should sell. And I think that's probably true. Like, no one's buying Kevin's shtick right now. Everyone knows what's up with Kevin, so I think that it's an obvious sell here.
I think I'm going to hold. I think I'm with Melissa. I agree with Brent that his stock has taken a hit this week, but I wouldn't want to sell because I feel like it's what my dad did with Netflix. So basically, he bought a bunch of Netflix stock like real early on when this wasn't even a thing. And then he sold it all off like a couple years back, and he was really proud of how much he made. And I'm like, and right when he did it, I'm like, Dad, did you hear like Netflix just announced they're going to have a bunch of original movies and like original shows, which like Marco Polo had just been announced when he sold off. Like, my dad made a profit, but he could have turned a much bigger profit if he just held on a little longer. So I think I could see that with
Yes,
Kevin.
but I remember when MySpace was offered like $5 billion to sell, and they didn't sell, and look what happened to them. So you never know.
Taking that one. Yeah, Is he Pets.com? I don't know. Right?
We all know what great success Marco Polo went on to achieve. So, man, bad move by your dad. Yeah, you would like that show, Alex Kidwell. All right, let's move on to Dominique, the person who probably her stock has fallen the most by far. I think we were already kind of skeptical of where she was, the direction she was headed last week. I think the words I was saying was that like I was very scared that she was way too focused on Mark and not socializing with enough other people. And man, she has crashed. Right, Melissa?
Yep, sell for sure. There's no saving her at this point, I don't think. So, bye.
Yeah, Alex, Brent, is there any reason to hold or on Dominique?
No, and you can't even sell at this point because no one's buying. So you've just got to rip up your papers and jump from the roof.
Yeah, it's a junk bond at this point. The only thing that could happen with Dominique is the like rare 1-2 punch where she wins the battle back, wins HOH, which that doesn't seem to happen in Big Brother these days. Like, it seemed to happen like back in the day. Like, back in the day, it could be like, 12 against 1 and the 1 would win somehow. But nowadays, that doesn't happen as much. Someone correctly pointed out to me, like, we say it's Big Brother and of course that's going to happen. But these days, that doesn't really seem to happen a lot anymore. And I wish it did happen more.
I feel like Victor came pretty close to, coming back and winning right away. So Yeah, so let's move on to Jessica. Jessica, I personally feel like maybe a little bit on the rise. Are you with me here, Brent?
I am with you. I didn't like the fact that she got involved in this Josh fight today. I mean, she needs allies more than anything. I feel like she's feeling a little too comfortable right now, and she shouldn't be because she's on the block. She could be evicted, and there are people that do not like her right now. She is making headway with Raven and Elena, her heretofore friends who she was good with during week 1, and they left her during week 2, and now all of a sudden they're besties again, it seems like, because Jessica's making a point to them saying, I really want to be here. I don't want to be evicted pre-jury. I want to see what I can do. And Raven and Elena are like, look, one of us needs to win HOH, put somebody else up, and then we're good till jury. Like, we'll all make jury together. So here's my problem with Jess. I don't want her to be seen as too much a part of the cool kids. Like, you were good with the outsiders, and that's why you're rising on Jokers right now. She's like number 4 and number 3 on Jokers right now, and she's winning in Taran's poll. Obviously, I don't care about that from her gameplay perspective, but I don't want the house guests who are on the outside to see her as a traitor who went right back to the people that, ostracized her and say, look, we can't trust her. Let's get her out. I don't feel like that's going to be good for her game.
I was shocked to see she was leading the poll earlier, Taran.
Yeah, people have really been rallying around her. It seemed like she might be the target earlier in the week, or at least prior to this week, coming into this week. So people were rallying around her for that reason. And now she's just kind of become the symbol. People are like Brent in that they want her to be what they saw in her preseason. They want her to get this power and do something crazy with it. While I think she is on the rise, I'm unwilling to start buying yet because I think it's pretty likely that Cody comes back, and I think that tanks her game. And I also think that she's still not the best player in the world. She's getting involved in these fights with Josh. She's still talking a little too much. So I'm not quite ready to buy, but I do think her stock is on the rise at this point. Any disagreement?
No, I think that I would buy Jess. I think that she's, making good headway with people. And I think that people are voting for her for the temptation because they see her and Ramses and like Jason and stuff as, and I guess now Dominique, as the only people who can really see through what Paul's doing. Everyone else, they don't really have faith in them actually using the halting hex to actually stop Paul and instead maybe help him when he ends up on the block eventually, which would be just the absolute worst case scenario. But yeah, so that's another reason why Alex is kind of falling in terms of if people are voting for her or not, is because people don't really have faith that she's not going to use it for Paul anymore. But I've been voting for Jessica and Ramses. But,
I kind of feel like next week we could see Jessica win HOH and target Alex, and they would just switch spots again.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
I personally would have voted Ramses if I was anti-Paul. I feel like Ramses has a much better shot of using it against, especially again if Cody comes back and wants to work with Paul. Jessica's getting on that train, so watch out. Let's move on to Mark from last week. Mark, he's always in a tumultuous situation here. Alex, how do you feel about Mark?
Not great. I mean, he's not reacting well to these situations. I mean, he's right. I think he's right. Usually you don't want to just let people put you on the block as a pawn without a fight, even if everyone's promising you safety. But I just think he's getting too emotional. He's reacting. You're seeing it affect him now. I mean, this outburst with Josh over Poole, I can't imagine that this happens if he's not like already stressed about the Dominique situation, about the maybe him going up situation. Like, there was a lot that he had to, a lot of talking and a lot of social work he had to do this weekend that I don't think he was anticipating to have to do this early in the game. So Mark is like reeling a bit right now. He's backpedaling, and I think he's not necessarily sure like how to play this game from a down position. And so you're going to see, I think, more emotional reactions from him because he's not living life these days.
You in agreement, Melissa?
Yeah, I liked what he was saying in the beginning of the week to try and make it so he was not the replacement Nom. I agreed with everything he was saying, where he was like, what? Why would you why? This doesn't make any sense. I'll just agree to vote Dominique out. Like, don't put me in danger. And Alex kept saying that she was saving him by putting him on the block to not give him the opportunity to have to vote for Dominique. It was like the stupidest logic I've ever heard.
No,
but
you don't have to save me. It's fine. But put me in the line of fire. That's the difference.
He's like, that's fine. Like, I just won't cast a hinky vote. Like, I'll just tell people, like, you know, like I didn't vote for it. Like, if I was Mark, I agree with him. I'd much prefer to just be accused of casting a hinky vote than to actually be on the block and potentially go home if something goes awry that week. So, but you know, the whole fight with Josh and just, I feel like he's getting into a lot of drama, and Paul's now kind of questioning him because he wasn't so keen to be a pawn. And I kind of have to sell on Mark, unfortunately.
Yeah, I have to say, I had flashbacks to Austin from BB17 when I heard Mark like begging for his life, like, you know, please don't put me up. Like, I don't want to go. If I go up on the block, I'll be they'll vote me out. I know it's gonna happen. Like, no, it's not gonna happen. But on the other hand, I get where he's coming from, because remember, the last vote was 7-3. Like, that kind of came out of nowhere, and nobody would really own up to those votes. So of course Mark is reticent to go on the block, but it wasn't exactly fun feeds watching him get there.
Yeah, Mark.
I heard Colin Stone dropped this on a podcast recently, this Marcellus quote that I'm now like re-obsessed with. But the history of Big Brother, the annals of Big Brother history are littered with the Marks of the world who, should have fought harder to not go up on the block.
Well, I have to agree. I do think, we previously talked about how Mark is doing better than Matt in terms of socializing with the other side of the house. Mark has made some good connections. However, he is so emotional, and I think it's really degrading the respect that people have for him. He's really opening up the door for Matt to go and start socializing with the other side of the house. Matt has been a target going into next week. I think that's going to slowly shift to Mark instead. And that's not good for Mark, because Matt is a much juicier target than Mark at the moment in terms of like, well, nobody's going to really care that much, and we need to get Raven and Matt out eventually. But Mark is getting in there instead. And again, I feel like he's losing respect in terms of if he ever does make it to the final two, people aren't super happy. They feel like, well, you can't control your emotions, man. Why should we vote for you? So I think he's down, and I think I was a little too high on him before, so I think I will start to sell a little bit here. Mark, just not a good spot to be. And speaking of, let's talk about Matt, who I do feel like is a little bit on the rise here. I feel like I heard him talk earlier today about how he feels like, well, you know what? Should I go and talk to people like Alex and be like, hey, we're good? Is that something I should do, Paul?
Like, yeah.
Paul's like, yeah, probably.
Couldn't hurt.
Brent, how do you feel about Matt?
I mean, I don't. How can I feel about Matt? I mean, I guess Matt is non-offensive, and he's probably going to go a fair amount in this game. On the other hand, people were saying that about Dominique a week and a half ago, and look what happened to her. So I don't feel like it takes long for the target to switch in the Big Brother house. I hate to be Fancy Finsterton about this, but I will hold Matt right now because I don't feel like his stock has really changed. There are some people who are willing to work with Matt now, but there are some people who would like to put Matt up on the block. So I feel like that maybe it's different people who want to do those things, but it's still about the same amount of people. I feel like against Raven, he always goes home unless they're thinking straight. And it says here that right now they aren't thinking straight because obviously it seems like Raven is the bigger threat rather than Matt right now to win the game. But I don't know. It just I don't really have a big thought on Matt other than it's interesting that he had, 2 blue shirts and they gave him a purple shirt. So he has like a third shirt now. Isn't that what's going on?
Well, he had blue and orange, and now he does have a purple one as well. So,
and where did this come from? Did he win HOH and I didn't know about it?
I think Alex sent him a care package. After I blamed Alex for his shirt situation this morning, he was like, get him another shirt so people don't yell at me on Twitter.
Yeah, I drove over really early this morning to NoHo, and I threw a shirt over the wall. So,
Big Brother should be taking away shirts from Matt. That's the only thing he's good for is eye candy.
Oh my God.
All right. Anyone disagree?
That joke fell flat. Thank you for laughing, Melissa. I appreciate it.
All right. Yeah. If there's no disagreements about Matt, we'll move on to Raven. Melissa, how do you feel about Raven's spot here?
That's tough because people are willing to put her up on the block at this point. And which gets me excited. I get really happy about that, but I don't necessarily see them actually wanting to vote her out. So it just seems to me that she might be used as a pawn coming up, but I don't necessarily think people are gunning for her at this point, which is kind of disappointing. But, I'm just going to sell her anyway.
Just out of spite.
Out of spite, yes. That's exactly. See, I love this. Yes, you don't like them, just sell them out of spite. I would sell Raven too. There's no way she's going to win. There's no flipping way. They're going to let this chick get to the end of the game. They're all going to want to win the money. It's still a ton of money. I don't care what any of you say. And especially for these people who are basically, well, I shouldn't say basically, but most of them are, they don't have a lot going on in their life right now. We'll just call it like it is.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like the sympathy well is starting to dry up for Raven. There's no way she gets to the end anyway. And as it stands, we do have people like Kevin and Jessica saying like, somebody needs to go after Raven eventually. So it might as well be soon. So yeah, I think I'm going to sell here too. And she's not doing a whole lot to advance her own station in the game either. So it's hard. It's really hard to picture Raven winning this game at this point. So let's move on. Let's talk about Elena. Elena, I feel like, is a good person to talk about. Alex, how do you feel about Elena?
I think Elena's in a pretty good spot because I don't know who's going to target her outright. I mean, I think the thing is, like, people close to Elena have been targeted this week, and Elena's managed to emerge unscathed. So I think, like, if she was able to get out of this week without any fresh targets, then I think that kind of bodes well for her long-term chances. I don't necessarily think she's someone who really has a strong chance to win this game. I think the game, to a large degree, is kind of being played around her, but she's not clueless. I mean, she's definitely involved in more than a lot of people who were in that initial majority group, and she has like better working social relationships with a lot of people than most of the house, I think, at this point. So she should be safe for a while. It's hard for me to see her like taking the steps that would be necessary at 7 or 6 or something to really like flip this game in a way that presents her with a path to win.
Yeah, I don't see her as necessarily the strategic powerhouse, but I do think she is very good socially, and she's very involved in all of the pots. And I think that's really good for her. I think if she finds herself in the final two, she could very well win because she has the respect of people. I think it's very telling that she came very close to winning this HOH, and yet still nobody really sees her as a competition threat. Nobody sees her as a threat for being as basically as social as Paul, almost as social as Paul. She has almost as many connections as Paul does. But nobody really sees her as a threat here. I really like where her positioning right now, and I feel like where Paul is kind of like dangerously hanging onto a cliff to make sure he doesn't fall. Elena's standing pretty solid. Paul could blow up at any moment, but I feel like Elena's in a great spot to move forward. So I'm going to be buying Elena. I feel like she's in this game for a while at this point, and it's hard to find that changing either. She's also a very consistent character. She doesn't really blow up. She doesn't make a lot of huge mistakes. So I think we're going to see Elena in here for a while. Do you agree, Melissa?
Yeah, definitely. I'm buying Elena for sure. She has so many good social connections, not just in her main alliance, but also with Ramses and Jessica and other people. And everyone thinks of her as very not emotional and very straightforward and logical. And she comes across that way when she speaks, and she explains to people that that's how she is and that's what it is. And she's just going to say it like it is. And everybody respects that. And even Josh earlier was saying, Elena is the only one who will speak to me like in this way, da-da-da. And so I think that I think if she got to the end, I could definitely see her being able to plead her case in a way that shows that she actually made more moves maybe than she did. And maybe she's saving some of her strategy for the end. Maybe she's playing just the long game and she's just waiting till the end to really pull out the big guns.
Yeah, you never know. Somebody like that, they could always catch on to the game and start really turning it on toward the end. Brent, are you on board with Elena here?
Yeah, Elena's quickly becoming one of my favorite people in the house, more than anything. I really feel like she played it as well as she could with Alex when they made that deal, and she saw quickly that Alex wasn't going to do exactly what Elena wanted her to do. She could have fought back harder, but I feel like that would have done herself a disservice in her overall game. She was just really chill with Alex, like, well, I obviously I can't really support that, but you're the HOH, so I support you, whatever you want to do. I felt like she played it about as well as she could. Obviously, she has been able to play the victim a little bit with Dominique saying, throwing her name out there, even though it's true that Elena was fighting for Dominique, maybe a little bit too hard, actually, because Dominique really didn't care about Elena very much. And Elena has a really good rapport with Paul. It's a very fun relationship that I like. Elena just is very fun in the house. She doesn't get too upset with anybody, and I like her diary rooms as well. She seems to have a good feel about what's happening in the house, and why people are doing what they're doing and what she can do about it right now and what she may be able to do in the future. Like, she knew with Alex that there's no way I can really change her mind right now, but I'm just going to have to take my medicine, but I'm going to keep that in my head that I know that she kind of went back on this deal, and I'll make sure that I remember that for the future. So I really like Elena, and I would buy.
All right,
yeah, I think she's in a really good position. Just the one thing I'd add is I think she could be in a potentially great position if she's somehow able to do some work to get Mark off the radar, because Mark represents a big meat shield for her that she can use. Like, it's going to buy her a week of safety. Is that week coming in pre-jury or jury? That remains to be seen. But like, if she can find a way to get Mark to the jury phase despite himself, then she's in a much better position even.
Yes, I agree. Okay, let's move on to Paul. Paul, who I feel like was showing some very, very impressive stuff this week, and then also some not so impressive stuff. He's gone a little up and down here. Are we high on Paul? Are we up on Paul? Are we going? Is he going down, or should we be holding? What do you think, Alex?
I'm inclined to say he's on the downtrend. I mean, I think he's doing too much, and it's what, 2 days? There's a countdown clock on Twitter. Help me out. How soon until Paul is eligible for re-vote? I love the countdown clock. People have been posting it like, good morning. 2 days until Paul is eligible for nomination. Like,
you know, with
awesome.
How much people have been comparing Paul to, I could easily see Cameron winning the buyback or the battle back, and then immediately winning HOH. Maybe it's a thing where they're competing with the House. Who knows? And then he wins HOH and just is like, oh, Paul's running the House, right? So I'll just get rid of Paul.
Take him out.
Yeah.
Because the DR, like, you were safe for 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. It would be such a Game of Thrones moment too. You know, it's Game of Thrones all over the place. It just premiered last night. It would be such a great. It's out of nowhere. Malcolm comes back and takes Paul out of the House. How do you feel about Paul's game, Brent?
I don't know. I mean, it's really. I'm trying to have an opinion about Paul, and of course, I have many opinions about Paul. But I feel like we've sort of talked Paul to death. Do I think Paul can win the game? No. There's no version of Paul that wins this game. They're going to take him out sooner or later. It's just going to happen. He would have to pull out like a string of competition wins. I don't feel like that they're just even regardless of what Alex is saying right now, I don't feel like they're going to let Paul get to the end of the game, because and even if he got to the end of the game, I don't feel like they're voting for him to win. They're like, we're not going to vote for this veteran. We're going to vote for somebody in our cast. Now, of course, you can come up with a scenario that maybe that wouldn't happen, but I do feel like they're going to ultimately say, you know what? He had a bit of an advantage. He was safe for 3 weeks. He's played this game before. We're not voting for this guy. You know, that never happens on Big Brother Taran. I don't know about you, but I've never seen that happen before.
He got second again.
I know, right? I don't know. I just I like what Paul's doing. I think he's been doing a lot of it. On the other hand, if I was him, I can't say that I wouldn't be doing the same thing. So it's very hard for me to be critical of Paul, because I feel like he's doing what we always say to do in Big Brother, which is just try to set up targets in front of you and make sure you're not the number one target. And he always seems to be involved in the decision making, much like Andy and much like Derek. But on the other hand, he's been safe. So my opinion of him is somewhat neutral.
Yeah.
You on board with that, Melissa?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think Paul's doing some really good work, but I think it's hard for me to give him complete praise because he's safe. So it's absolutely possible that all these people who are following behind him like little minions are all just doing it because they know they can't get him out yet, and they don't want to be the target for the week. So they're waiting until, I mean, this is probably wishful thinking, but they're waiting until he's not safe to actually like come out front and make a move. But, you know, I don't know. Once Paul's not immune from being on the block and we have like a couple weeks in between, then
Right.
I'll be completely impressed.
All of a sudden on Friday morning, Matt is just like channeling Derek. Like, what? Where do these people come from? Well, now
Everything's
Paul's
changed.
the game on now. Yeah.
Yes, I will contest the idea that Paul can't win the game. I do think that he absolutely could win the game, but I feel like this hasn't been the best week for him. Again, he's displaying some pretty great skills, but it's a lot, and it's still early, so it's hard to buy. Yeah, it's hard to buy.
It seems like you
Paul
forget
here.
that. Like me and Melissa more than anything have been beating the drum that like, yeah, he's pretty amazing, but he's safe. So I mean, like, is it like if I don't know. I'm trying to think of an analogy. Maybe Alex can come up with one. But I mean, like, there's
Stone's,
nothing to be impressed with.
laser tag analogy. This was on their podcast. I keep thinking. I listened to Dom and Colin's BB podcast like the same night that we did a podcast with Colin. So now I can't remember what Colin said on our show versus their show, but it was on their show. Colin talked about the only time he's ever played laser tag. 2 minutes into the game, his vest started malfunctioning. And so he takes it to the guy, and it's only a 15-minute game. So the guy's like, all right, here. And just gives him a guess that can't be shot. So he's got God powers for the rest of the laser tag. So just walking around, people are shooting him, no effect. He's just shooting him back. Colin just gets to like play laser tag completely invulnerable. And that's like the best. That's a great analogy.
Yeah,
yes,
totally. That's what's going on. Yep.
I've said this a lot of times at this point that we can't really say that he's playing a great game until we see him playing without the safety. But that doesn't mean that the things that he's displayed aren't impressive.
There's the but
in the moment.
I heard it, Melissa. You always have the but. Like there's a but. You're always like, well, I've always said, yeah.
Well,
there's a possibility he could have already been evicted if he didn't have this safety. There's the absolute possibility that when Cody puts him on the block, he could have gone home that week. We have no idea what would have happened if Paul was on the block. So, I mean, it's not like he never was nominated and they still didn't know that he had this power and it just like, was secret the whole time. They knew he had the power. They couldn't evict him. They couldn't put him on the block. So nobody was going against him.
Here's my problem. And I'm really not trying to start a fight with you, Taran. I understand where you're coming from. You're saying like, yeah, he's safe, but he's done some really good work. I feel like he's done some really good work because he was safe. Like, I don't feel like you can separate the two. Like he's had complete invulnerability to be able to, go all over the house, making plans, putting up targets. What would he have done if he wasn't safe? We don't know. So I don't feel like that he gets much credit for that in my eyes.
I feel like in the first week of Big Brother Canada 5, when Netta got the immunity, and I said, this sucks because everything will be tied to this. We can't properly evaluate Netta's game. Somebody on the podcast went, oh my God, shut up, Taran. So I understand the concept of this thing.
If you're not watching, Brent just slowly wiggled himself out of the picture. That's so funny.
Brent's gone.
Yes, I do. I completely agree. Everything is tied to the fact that he is safe. However, there's still a difference between him trying to do this and failing and having a bunch of people saying when his immunity runs up, we want to go after him, and trying to do this and succeeding. I think that's still something that we should look at. And I think that it's still something that, again, the fact that he is safe, if he goes home immediately after he's not safe, I think we can say, all right, most of that was probably the safety. If he continues to do what he has been doing, then we should say, yes, it was in fact pretty impressive, and he's going to continue to do that. Right now, we are kind of in this no man's land where we're not entirely sure. And that's the problem with evaluating Paul's game, and that's the problem with long periods of safety. So
pissed with a question mark, bordering on never cared, waiting on more information to reveal itself.
Yes.
The Paul watch right now.
All right, let's move on to Alex, who I feel like I still feel like she shouldn't have won this HOH in the first place. I feel like it ultimately led to a decent situation for her, but I'm not sure. I feel like she's letting herself become a bigger and bigger threat, and she's still too trusting of Paul. I'm not sure where this week where she ends up after this week. How do you feel, Brent?
I feel probably a little bit better than you. On the other hand, I do agree with what Alex said. Was it on the Live Feed show earlier today where he said, yeah, she's going to come out of this week and she's not going to be a big target with anybody. And she, I guess you have to call that a successful HOH. On the other hand, what deals did she make with people? What bonds did she make with people? What relationships were there that are coming out of this week? I mean, I guess maybe she feels a little bit closer to Matt and Raven. Do Matt and Raven feel like Alex is one of them? Maybe, maybe not. I know Elena is pissed about the fact that Alex seemingly went back on parts of her deal. Obviously, Mark's not loving Alex right now because Alex was sort of pushing to put Mark up on the block and was not willing to put Raven up on the block. So that shows Mark where he is in Alex's eyes, at least, lower than Raven right now. I do, on the other hand, like some of her natural instincts for the game. I like the fact that she wasn't like Whistlenut wanted to be this week, which is to say, like, I probably would have been, which is just like go in there and go after the targets and say, hell yeah, I'm coming after you. Like, she stayed her hand enough where she was able to slide back under the radar. On the other hand, she is way too trusting of Paul, which I know we've all been going on about, but she was also very trusting of Kevin once upon a time. And now that has gone out the window. I do feel like her mind can be changed on Paul, and it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, I feel like she's the kind of player where she needs to win too many competitions than she's capable of winning. And at some point, I feel like she's just going to be targeted. And I feel like, especially because I think the next person we'll talk about is Jason, I feel like Jason has been kind of going back down under the radar and Alex is kind of rising up a little bit. And that's not good for Alex. If she is seen as the competition threat between the two of them, then she's going to get struck at first, especially if she's also seen as the brains behind the operation, which she really tries to sell even to other people. So I'm not super high on Alex here. I still don't want to buy yet. And I'm not sure I ever will. Do you agree, Melissa?
Yeah, I agree. At this point, she goes back and forth with me. Sometimes I absolutely love her, and I think that she's working everybody and that she's working us, and maybe in her mind she actually doesn't trust Paul, but then she'll go and she'll say something stupid like about the friendship bracelets. So I'm just gonna hold on Alex, I think, because I want to like her. I desperately want her to be the person that I want her to be, but I'm not so sure she's that person. So I'm just gonna hold.
Yeah. If ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Christmas Abbott. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
yeah, you can always have Alex come in line.
I just can't get over how Jason has never watched an episode of this game, and he seems to have better instincts. And then I always come back to like how Alex, the pro gamer, didn't have her Xbox controller turned on in that intro package. Like, come on, man! Like, she's not that smart. I just can't imagine she's that smart. How hard is it to just turn on the controller for appearance's sake?
All right, let's move on to Jason. I feel like we're all pretty high on Jason, especially coming from last week where it seemed like he might be a target. I feel like he's done a lot of good work here, despite the fact that he was probably a little too aggressive coming into this week. Probably still is a little too aggressive in general. I feel like he's on the rise here. He's making some solid connections. He's not being targeted by the other side. He's made connections with people like Matt and Raven, even to some extent. So I really like where Jason is sitting, actually. Melissa, you seem to be on board.
Yeah, he's made great connections this week. I mean, he told Mark that he didn't want to use the veto so that he didn't want to put Mark on the block. Like, he's got Mark now and Elena liking him. He's got Matt and Raven liking him. He's got Ramses and Kevin liking him. He's got Alex liking him. Like, everybody is liking him because they kind of see him as like this goofy wild guy. But he's actually got great instincts for the game, and he's got like great brain. I don't know. I'm very excited about him. He's my new favorite. I'm very excited because I feel like he's going to be one of the people who can actually do something in the game and make moves. And when he gets in a room with someone, they want to believe him and they like to talk with him. And they both end up leaving the conversation thinking that they're both on the same page and that they both like each other more. Like when he was in the room with just Jessica and they were bonding and they were coming up with their plans and all that. And then he goes into a room with someone else and they're bonding and they're coming up with plans. So I just feel like he's on the rise. He's doing great things. I have faith that he's going to make some big moves in this game. He's not afraid to do it. He says, I'm not afraid to make moves. I'm aggressive. I'm going to come at it. But at the same time, they think he's fun and funny and silly and goofy. So I like him. I like him a lot.
Alex, you're in agreement?
It's a mixed bag for me. I mean, I think he's got huge glaring weaknesses in his game. I mean, this guy has no idea what Big Brother is still. Like, he really makes lots of mistakes. I mean, it's easy for me to see a scenario where Matt wins the next head of household and targets Jason. Jason was going to target Matt. I mean, Jason does have some good connections in this house, but he has some people in this house who have no connection with him whatsoever, and that's not something you want. I mean, there's a few people who I would name as potentially like no-brainer targets for certain individuals, and there's like one or two people in this house who, if they win HOH, like, Jason's going on the block. I think that's pretty safe to say. Whether or not he would be the target is up in the air, but I mean, I think it's very possible he doesn't make the jury. I don't think he's out of the woods by any means right now.
Yeah, I feel like he's a little too combustible. Like, the emotional part of me wants to buy Jason because I really like what he's saying. But on the other hand, he does flap his gums a little bit to too many people, and they might be on to him. Like Paul could quickly realize Jason is a threat to me, and I need to get rid of him fast. And I would always bet on Paul rather than Jason, especially if it comes down to a comp. So I'm going to reluctantly sell Jason, even though I'm really rooting for him right now.
It's a good point. So, if Paul were to take out Jason, that forces Alex's loyalty much closer to him too. Like, taking out Jason could be a great move for Paul.
Ugh, that would make me so angry. If I already don't like Paul now, I'm going to be furious if he takes out my new favorite. He took out my favorite Cody. Now he takes out my favorite Jason. It's like,
well, you're too invested, Melissa. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm very invested. I get way too invested.
All right, let's move on to Ramses. Ramses, I feel this was a great opportunity for Ramses to really pick up some allies. But yeah, as Brent says, he's just been really invisible this week. I feel like he did make a decent bond with Jessica, but even that was just not enough. I still think every week that Ramses is able to survive, it gives him more and more equity to win the game ultimately, but he's really not making use of that time. I remember Steve, who had equally limited capabilities in terms of like making social connections, was doing everything in his power to advance himself in the game, even when he was in a really limited position. But Ramses it just feels like he's running up against a brick wall every single day and nothing is happening. So I'm not ready to buy Ramses yet. You agree, Alex?
Yeah. I mean, Steve was telling Davon he loved her. I mean, he was really bending over backwards trying. You definitely got to give Steve that. And yeah, I mean, I think, you brought up before that, like, I don't understand why more people aren't voting for Ramses for the temptation, because I think he's a great recipient, but it just comes down to, right, he's just not been a factor on these shows. I mean, really the only thing Ramses has done on any of the episodes is like receive this arbitrary curse from Paul and then like let Paul navigate it for him. So, I mean, there's really nothing from the show to encourage you to think that like Ramses could potentially be a player that makes waves down the line. But I mean, based on what we've seen on the feeds, based on what we're talking about, I think like he's definitely someone who could. It's just a shame, like, he's not going to get this temptation. The temptations are going to end. And, the temptation phase of the game will have been very unkind to Ramses looking back.
Yeah. Are we, I mean, there's not a lot to talk about with Ramses. Are we in agreement here that Ramses just kind of, we're holding on Ramses?
Yeah. Fancy saying about Ramses.
I think Ramses is smart and he knows what's going on and he knows what he has to, well, he doesn't know what he has to do, but I think he knows who's controlling the house, who's on what side, where he stands in the group. But I don't think he's doing much with that information yet. I'm hopeful that maybe he can, but at the same time, you've got Paul going after him, which means like the majority alliance is going after him. And you also have Alex going after him, which is supposed to be in his alliance because Alex is not doing the right thing where the outsiders need to band together. And what's crazy to me is that this is like the first time when the outsiders in Big Brother know that they have to band together. They've all said it. They've all recognized like, hey, we're on the outs. We're outsiders. They've even said that. They're like, we need to somehow team up and get the majority alliance. But yet they're not doing it. And it's because Alex refuses to work with certain people. She refuses to work with Jessica. She refuses to work with Ramses. Like, she just wants to get them out. She's like, yeah, well, next week we're going to go after Ramses and Kevin. It's like, why? Yeah. I don't see why.
I know.
It's just doesn't make any sense.
I know, but Whistlenut was equally worrisome in my eyes because he was like, well, I don't know, next week I might put up Matt and Raven or maybe Josh and Ramses. I'm like, that's a pretty big difference. Like, I mean, so what are you really saying here? Like, that's like, are you even listening to yourself right now? I was like, so basically you don't know who you're going to put up. You're going to let Paul tell you who to put up. That's what's really going to happen.
Yeah. I hate this analogy because it's kind of dark, but I feel like Paul in a lot of ways is kind of like someone who's like running like an animal control shelter or something. And he's just able to walk around with impunity and be like, all right, well, I don't have that many resources and I have to euthanize a dog. So which one's it's going to be? And he's just like looking around and like Cody bares his teeth, right? Like that's not what you do. Dominique bares her teeth. Not what you do. But Ramses just rolled over and showed his belly. And that's what you want to do. That's the move.
This is the saddest analogy I've ever heard.
I just wanted to get to Ramses showing Paul his belly, and I didn't know how to get there.
Yeah, Alex is yeah, he always brings the analogies.
He brought the party down. I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right. Let's briefly talk about Christmas, who I feel like also hasn't done herself a whole lot of favors here. It's hard to see Christmas winning this game, right? Right, Melissa?
Yeah. I mean, people are suspicious of her. She's, she's scary when she's in a confrontation. She's like just unrelenting and just makes you feel like a total idiot, even if you know you're in the right. Like, I don't think I could get in a confrontation with her. She's just like, she's kind of cruel. Like, and the worst thing in a confrontation for me, at least, is when someone tells me, can I finish? I let you finish, and now it's time for you to let me finish. I hate that. I hate it. Can't we just go back and forth? I don't like the whole, like, I'm going to speak, I'm going to talk, you're not going to say anything, I'm not going to get any reaction from you until the end, when then you're like, I'm going to refute all your points one by one because you're a total idiot. So that's like, I don't know. I struggle with Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, right. It is irritating, and it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, I thought we were two adults having a conversation. I didn't realize I was a child. That's my bad.
Oh my God, there's a dog. Sorry.
They just popped up on me. They've been napping back there the entire show.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I mean, I think the really interesting thing to me is that like Christmas doesn't really raise her voice though. Like she does all this stuff, but it's like calm and it's like almost scarier.
It's unnerving.
Right? It's worse.
Yeah. She's just like, I'm going to speak now and you're going to be silent.
Yeah, you're like, oh God, I guess I am.
I feel like it's because of her personality. Like Christmas is a lot more worldly than a lot of these other people. She's done a lot more things in her life. She's just had more experiences, more life experiences. Like her bucket is overflowing. So she doesn't have a time to put up with the BS of the Big Brother house. I feel like she just wants to get down to her point. She wants to make it. She wants somebody else to make their point. But unfortunately for her, that's not how most people communicate in the Big Brother house. By the way, I saw in the feeds that she's probably going to go to the doctor next week to get a new cast. So that'll be time number 5 that she's out of the house, just so you know.
For those of you keeping track at home.
Like me.
For those of you keeping track of how many times Brent mentions this after he said he wasn't going to mention it, I believe that is also number 5.
It's getting mentioned all season long. There's no way around this. This is it's like one of the 3 major stories of this summer. No matter what else happens, I shudder to think about what that could be, but it's still going to be one of the 3. I can't imagine it won't.
I feel like if she goes home next week, we'll be done with Christmas. But let's move on. We're not going to forget about Josh this week, right? He's been a presence here, and ultimately, I think a negative presence for Josh. This blow up in particular, just not the best look for him, right, Brent?
Not the best, but I think he'll be okay because of his general demeanor beforehand and the house guests that everyone has gotten to know up until now. Obviously, Mark, I haven't really been, we've been on the live feed show right now. I haven't seen how Mark has really reacted to the aftermath of this amazing fight. But I have to feel like most people are probably going to give Josh a bit of a pass. Like he's a have-not. He's not feeling great this week. He's a bit of a child anyway. I feel like they expect more of Mark. So that's why Mark's probably getting the raw end of the deal. I'm actually going to buy Josh, believe it or not. I still feel like people will look at Josh and go, really? We're going to get this fool out? Like, we're going to waste our HOH on this guy? He doesn't know what the hell's going on in the game right now. Like, I feel like Josh is going to be fine. Again, Josh is a dark horse winner pick for me. I mean, I know he's on my team, and I would love to see him win. But if he can just find a gear where he can control himself, and obviously being a have-not is not a good thing for him. It was a terrible idea to go for that stupid key.
I'm not sure. I feel like Josh's path to win the game was one where he refrained from acting in this way, and I feel like the fact that he continues to do it, I feel like he's kind of alienating potential alliances or people who are close to him. Anyway, we're seeing people like Alex being like, I don't know about Josh, and as you mentioned, even Jason is like, well, maybe we should put Josh up on the block. Those are the people that should really just be solidly on his side. So I think I gotta sell Josh. Alex, what do you think?
I'm kind of inclined to agree with Brent. It's like, who's going to waste an HOH on this guy and why? And, soon, like, I feel like he's probably not going anywhere for a while. It's hard for me to see like path to victory really, because I feel like he's quickly losing the respect of everyone in there with some of these tirades. And even if people enjoy you as a character, if you don't have their respect, it's hard to win a vote at the end. Paul maybe could tell him a thing or two about that. I think he's going to be good for a little while. It would benefit him to not do stuff like this, I think,
right?
Because, no one was targeting him. Now I could see a scenario where Mark wins and puts him on the block.
I see a couple of people like Alex and Jason and Kevin talking about, Josh has to be next, which is ironic because those are the people that he needs. The people on the other side are the people that Josh really wasn't a part of, and yet they have sympathy for Josh right now. So it's weird. Again, I don't feel like we can read anything into this. I know what they're saying right now, but again, the battle back is coming. The house is going to be flipped upside down. We don't know who's coming back. That's going to change a lot of calculations in the house right now. Even though Josh had this little fight I feel like it was good to have it now rather than next week if he's going to have it. So at least he's bought himself a few more weeks of safety once the battle back happens.
All right. Man, wow, very comprehensive look at this week on the feeds. I think we've actually answered all of the questions I have written down here. So that's about it. Finally, I can tell you the name of my new podcast. It's called, if you could guess a name of my stature, it would surely be something amazing, something brilliant. And,
I gave you my pitch.
You would be right, Alex. All of Alex's pitches, they were too clever. I needed something nice.
I like tear talks. That was mine.
Give me some more so mine doesn't look as bad. Actually, no. It's called The Taran Show, and every week I am going to be interviewing another person in the reality TV world or our own podcasting community. So the very first interview was with Rob Cesternino. I had a really awesome conversation with him. I really, really enjoyed it. I feel like I learned a lot of things, and it was really like a podcast for myself. Like I get to talk to Rob for an hour and a half and like get to like dive deep into all these cool things. And I can announce also the next interview will be none other than Brent here, who has had a very interesting life. Brent sent me a whole outline of events that happened in his life. I don't think we can cover all of them in just one podcast. So that's going to be a very interesting show.
It's like the Danielle Murphy life story, only it's not all lies.
Exactly. Yeah. You have listened to Brent on these podcasts. Just wait. If you don't know who Brent is on a personal level, just wait until you find out the man behind the microphone. This is a very interesting and complicated guy, as much as I love to yell at him. So watch out for that. It will be uploaded onto iTunes and on robhasawebsite.com/Taran Show. You can look out for that tomorrow. It should hopefully be up in the morning, maybe a little later. It can sometimes take a little long for iTunes to verify those things. So keep on the lookout for that. I'm very, very excited about this. It's very, very fun. It should be every Tuesday. I'll be releasing another interview. It's really, I look at it as a substitute for my social life. It's an excuse to like have deep conversations with people. And as a robot, I'm going to like study human nature through all of these conversations. So I
was going to tell you really quickly. I had no idea what you were calling it, and I heard it at first. And I was like, "Oh, that's terrible," but now I'm like, "I love it. Like that's great. Like it's a Taran Show. Like that's very, very fun. I like it. It's great branding because it's about you, and I know it's about the guests that you're interviewing, but it's still your show. So I think, well done, Robot. I like it.
Thank you. Actually, I expected you to make fun of it. But
no, I really like it. Yeah, I really did.
Yeah. I figured, I'm Taran. It's a show. It's a Taran Show.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
It's a Taran Show. Yeah. It rolls off the tongue, too.
Yeah. Story checks out.
We can have all sorts of great conversations. I'm really looking forward to releasing some of these and getting into it. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you go and subscribe tomorrow on iTunes. It'll be very, very helpful if you do. Check that out. But let's get back to this roundtable. Do we have any ideas for a hashtag? Tell me in the chat and let me know if any of you three have an idea for one. If not, we'll move on to some predictions. Who do we think is coming back in the battle back? And then depending on any of those scenarios, who do we think is going home next week? Because I feel like this is a week where like anything could happen. Melissa, what do you think?
Who do I think is coming back in the battle back? I think Cody. I think Cody will do it now, but now I'm starting to think Cameron. So I don't know, but I'm just going to stick with Cody because I feel like he has the best chance of winning a competition. And then should I just go on to who I think is going to go home or should I just, who I think is going to go home? I guess I'll just pick Mark.
I could see that. I feel like Mark is kind of in the way that we thought Dominique could be a dark horse going home this week. I feel like Mark could easily be that one coming into next week. But obviously anything can happen with the battle back. Brent,
really quickly, I'm also predicting Cody to come back because I think a couple things are going on here. Number one, I don't see a competition that really Cody could lose to Cameron in. I'm trying to think of a competition. Maybe there's one out there, maybe a memorization competition where you have to like look at the wall and go around the other side of the wall. Maybe. But again, production knows that Cody is a Paul man now. So they really have incentive to want to get him in the house. I feel like, this is like the rigging thing where they put up a competition, and it definitely favors somebody rather than the other person. So I do feel like Cody will come back. And if Cody comes back in the house, not only is the house maybe targeting Mark, but Cody wants Mark's head on a stake. Like, he hates Mark. He thinks he's a traitor. He thinks he's such a beta. Like, he's a follower, and he really feels betrayed by him. So Mark's butt is grass, or his ass is grass if Cody comes back into the house.
Do we think Cody's playing production at all and trying to say, I'd join up with Paul for sure because he knows that Paul is a production fave?
The guy who couldn't figure out that he needed to tell his alliance about his backdoor plan. This is the guy that's playing production, really?
Well, I don't know. He was leaving the show and doing all the interviews, basically saying that like he wasn't given a shot, and he was like shading production in all of his interviews. You never know.
Well, that's the thing. Like,
he means every word of that.
if he was trying to play production into letting him come back, I don't think he'd be complaining about the twists to Julie in his exit interview.
I don't think we can give Cody much credit when it comes to like cerebral levels of strategy here. I mean, this is a guy that didn't understand that if you want to backdoor somebody, you have to secure the votes first. That's the most basic rule.
All right. I haven't seen a compelling hashtag yet. I saw dominated.
I saw grizzled. That was a great word.
all right, we can do grizzled. All right, so we'll
Grizzly
do
Abrahamians.
hashtag grizzled. We've got another live update coming to you tomorrow at 10 a.m. And then we also will have Scott Dennis, our Virgin King, will be on Wednesday night to recap the veto episode. And unfortunately, I know I talked about previously, Andy was supposed to be on Thursday night. Andy will not be on Thursday night. We have rescheduled.
As soon as I announce it, Andy's like, oh, about that thing.
Yes. So Andy will be another night, but we do have the Virgin King on Wednesday, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And make sure you check out the American Ninja Warrior stuff I'm doing with Lita. She was on the update this morning. It was this morning, right? Sometimes I get my
it was very fun show.
Like a week and a half ago.
Yes. And of course, also check out But First, a Big Brother 2 documentary, so you can understand all of the Monica Big Brother 2 references, because you really need to understand all of the Monica references. And of course, make sure you check out our Game of Thrones recaps coverage. All of it. It's Game of Thrones. It's back. It's bigger than ever. And Rob is he's doing a lot of work to cover this stuff. So make sure you check that out if you are interested.
Another show recording tonight with Josh to get further into stuff. They're doing 3 a week right now with the Game of Thrones on Poster Recap. So yeah, a lot of content there to dig into if you're interested.
Oh yeah. Oh man, Game of Thrones. It's good stuff. All right. So for Melissa, Brent, and Alex, make sure you follow them on Twitter. Alex is at Alex Kidwell. Brent is at OneLuckyGay. Melissa is at It's Melissa with 3 A's, and I am at Armstrong Taran. Make sure you check out all of our Big Brother coverage. Hashtag grizzled.
Hashtag grizzled.
Hashtag grizzled. We will see you next time.